go off the rails. Don't you know it's time to raise our sails? It's freedom like you never knew. Don't need bags or a pass. Say the word, I'll be there in a flash. You could say my hat is off to you. Oh, we can zoom all the way to the moon from this great wide wacky world. Jump with me, grab coins with me, oh yeah. It's time to jump up in the air. Jump up, don't be scared. Jump up and your cares will soar away. And if the dark clouds start to swirl, don't feel a shed a tear, 'cause I'll be your one-up girl. So let's all jump up super high, high up in the sky. It's no how we're up like dancing. You know that you're my superstar. No one else can take me this far. I'm flipping the switch. Get ready for this song. Let's do the Odyssey. Odyssey, yes, see. 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 Odyssey, Odyssey. Spin the wheel, take a chance. Every journey starts a new romance. A new world's calling out to you. Take a turn off the path. Find a new addition to the cast. You know that any captain needs a crew. Take it in stride as you move side to side. They're just different points of view. Jump with me, grab coins with me, oh yeah. Come on and jump up in the air. Jump without a care. Jump up 'cause you know that I'll be there. And if you find you're short on joy, don't fret, just don't forget that you're still a one-up boy. So go on, straighten up your cap. Let your toes begin to tap. This rhythm is a power tune. Don't forget you're the superstar. No one else can make it this far. But go through that stage. Now you've got panache. Oh, let's do the Odyssey. It's time to jump up in the air. Jump up, don't be scared. Jump up and your cares will soar away.
Hello, welcome to the stream. Welcome back. Thank you so much,
What up, everybody?
Asian Boogie. Is that
So, if I ever created a parody group or just like a cover group, I think the band name is going to be Sneaky Puppy. Because somebody texted me, is like, what,
Sneaky Puppy.
I sent something to somebody and they're like, what is that? Like a Sneaky Links kind of thing? I'm like, what's a Sneaky Links? Like, you know, like a little rendezvous for people in relationships. I'm like, oh, No. And then I don't know why Snarky Puppy popped in my mind. I'm like, Sneaky Puppy? Like, that'd be like a little rendezvous for those in Snarky Puppy.
Sneaky Puppy, I like it. Hello, human being. Hello, Ronald Chavez Music. Hello, Linhar97. DK and Livila Luca are back.
Wait, who said human beings? Did we say that?
Live La Vida Lua.
Oh, you want to know something funny? I actually looked it up on Tidal and played Living the Vida Loca by Ricky Martin this past weekend. And I was just showing it to Henry. I'm like, dude, I kid you not. Just listen to the amount of production work that went into this. And it was like an appreciation for that. And to see that be the first comment, and it's like, you know what? Yeah, that's right. Plus, I got my Miami look today, you know. I'm looking like I just came from, I don't know.
Miami
the
look.
Sauna.
What's a Miami look?
Miami look is like when you're older, but yet you still are dressing younger. If that makes sense. Like, you have the chain, you have this and that. It's like, yo, I think you forgot you grew up. Like, why?
I mean, you feel this. It's interesting. I feel like in the last couple of years, I've still felt pretty young, especially because like you consider, I was 28 with a 4-year-old kid.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty young.
Yeah.
But I turned 29 less than a week ago, this last weekend, and yeah, like it's not that I feel old. Like I don't feel old.
But you're just
but I definitely
acknowledging
don't
the
feel
number.
young. I definitely don't feel young. Yeah, like 29, coming up on 30 is. I got to get my shit together this year before I start building lifelong habits that I am no longer able to like
move away from.
Yeah, like it's gonna take a lot more effort to remove bad habits from 30. So I gotta get my shit together. So I've been doing good actually recently. I want to go over a couple topic ideas with you, and maybe we'll talk about this with the audience and kind of brainstorm some thoughts that I had. Thank you, Chris, on Instagram. Chris Ray.
Chris, thank you.
And just want a couple topic ideas. First things, I'm going to mention this when we start recording, but I just announced we are literally just past, in the last month, we have surpassed and gone beyond 500,000 downloads, which is crazy.
I want to emote more, but I think we talked about this. My emoting is weird.
Yeah, like so with the amount of downloads that we have per month and with the amount of downloads that we have in total, we are in the top 1% of all podcasts in every category ever.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so we're in the top 1%. And then on top of that, we are the #1 post-production podcast in the entire world. Like post-production audio. So there are bigger audio podcasts, but they're mostly about production. For example, like Song Exploder, which is significantly bigger than our show. But out of post-production, so like mixing, mastering, even like pre-production or like recording, just audio engineering in general, #1 biggest. Like there are some shows that have more total downloads, but those shows have also existed for almost 3 times as long as ours, but ours is growing at a faster rate and we're higher in the charts.
Yeah.
Interesting, right?
Oh, yeah.
In the world, which is crazy, just absolutely wild.
I'm going to start calling you Danye.
Danye? No,
You're the Kanye, but DK.
I got to show you my biggest flex from my trip from Japan. I got to show you my biggest flex from my trip from Japan. Hold on.
It's not the hat?
No.
Yeah, you have a bathing ape hat. Drum roll, please. Somebody in the comments, drum roll. It could be all dots.
A brand new. I don't wear suits, so I leave it in this secondary closet. Okay, here you go. I don't wear suits, so I leave all my suits in my secondary closet. Got a new suit. Tailored to me. Slim fit. No pleats. Modern looking, nice suit.
I think I just
How much
saw
did I
it.
buy this for?
$100.
Half that.
Really?
I bought this for 4,000 yen. If the yen was usually, the yen is closer to like 110 yen to the dollar, so it's usually like 1 penny, 1 yen kind of a thing. A little bit off because it's 110. But right now the yen is really weak. It's like 140, almost 150 yen to the dollar.
Okay.
So it was 4,000 yen,
Mm-hmm.
which means that in American dollars, it's probably like $32.
That's actually, yeah.
And here's the best part. You ready for this? Custom. It's got inscribed.
Daddy D.
There it is.
Now,
Inscribed Daddy D.
can you say it in an antagonist anime kind of way?
D.
There we go. Kind of like our text messages of how to say daddy chill in Spanish.
Daddy chill.
Con calma, papa.
Un calma, papa. Anyway, it's your boy Daddy D. Anyway,
D'ing
let's
it up
talk about
around
these
the
episode
world.
topics. I want to talk about these episode ideas before we get started. Also, this music is really killing my vibe right now. We're gonna skip this song. Whatever.
Can
the
you
hell
feel
this
it from
song
3 planets away? DK didn't get it.
is. Three. You want to hear the nerdiest joke ever?
Is it fish? What's 2 plus 2?
No. The nerdiest. This is. I'm gonna have to explain this, which makes this joke that much greater. Okay. Yo mama
Mm-hmm.
is so fat, I can see the things. I can see people behind her.
Oh, yeah. The way light moves.
Yeah. She's so fat that she has gravitational pull that warps light, so I can see things behind her. How's that for a nerdy oh mama joke? Can I get some amens in the chat? Let's get some amens in the chat.
I mean,
dog.
there's an Amye East.
Arnie East. What? What up, Post Av Music?
Oh man, I need to fix my glasses.
Yes. I
Oh.
literally, yeah, it's fine. He just texted me, but amen. We got some amens, dude.
Oh, we actually got it.
All right. Let's talk about some potential. I wanted to do, and I was thinking about doing this as like, so if you didn't know, I do the podcast episodes, and then we have the 2 exclusive episodes every week. So 3 podcast episodes every day, and then on top of that, before I left, I was doing an extra YouTube video every week as well. So there's like 4 pieces of content every day. I was thinking about doing this for a solo YouTube piece, but I was thinking that this might be good as something we talk about together. I thought about this like greener on the other side type situation. I talked about that yesterday. Maybe I could pull up the stream yesterday or no, on Friday, where I talked about at the very end, like grass is greener on the other side, and my perspective on that when I went to Japan for a month, because I've been talking to you saying that I might want to move to Japan. And yeah, I just had some thoughts about how things will always seem greener on the other side, and I wanted to talk about that potentially, especially in the context of like being an audio engineer working in the music industry. I thought that would be a good episode, a little bit more philosophical. The concept of like people love how we start and finish mixes,
Okay.
like just like, so this is more technical, like how we start and how we finish mixes, how we treat buses versus individual tracks.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good one too. Maybe we do like a 500,000 download special, but I don't know if we could do anything special right now. Maybe we should do something where we're in skin suits, like the green like skin suits, and we like chroma key ourselves out of it.
We just leave our eyes and mouth and nose.
Yeah. I don't know. So we gotta do something crazy. Bring back the LSA Ice Bucket Challenge.
Oh God, no.
A
We can have
potential-
50 Cent respond to it.
Yeah, a potential episode about how to lose clients.
Yeah.
That might be interesting, right?
Actually, that's something I've been talking about a lot lately, because while you were gone, I also kind of had this weird realization where I've set up a lot of boundaries in order to create structure in what I'm doing. But I've also found where those boundaries have also, I've stepped on Legos along the way.
Step on those Legos.
Yeah,
huh?
some Legos bigger than others.
Hmm.
But
Get your Legos here.
I think that could be kind of a cool thing, like understanding that there's a balance to how you actually set up your boundaries with your clients and how you accept and decline certain work, because it's not a one size fits all kind of way of going about it. You know,
Yeah.
like the boundaries you set with one client can actually make you lose another.
Yeah, so potentially, I think
Yeah.
that's a good one there. So it's kind of like the opposite perspective of how to gain clients. Maybe we do an episode about the journey of finding your sound. What does it mean to find your sound? Because like in the early stages of your career, I would say like typically speaking, the first 5 years as you develop your career, like I don't know. There's no exact number, but for many years, for almost every engineer specifically, for many years, people don't know what their own sound is, or they discover it and they slowly kind of specialize and discover what they like and what they're good at.
I've
So
always
talk
kind of
about that.
found like people knew their sound before they knew it. Like, you know what music you like, you know what kind of songs made you feel a certain way, and that's ultimately what we chase after. I
So
feel like
that
part
was
of
an
it
idea.
is
Yeah.
the chase. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an idea. I want to do something about like advanced EQ, but I don't know what that would be. I just wrote down advanced
It's
EQ.
kind of fun to explain it over audio.
And then like width versus depth
Yeah.
as well. What do you guys think? Anybody from the chat, both on Instagram, YouTube, or Twitch, or wherever else the hell we're live or whatever?
We're kind of matching.
How episode topics?
Yeah, we're kind of matching. I'm not going to lie. This is kind of funny.
Oh yeah, we kind of are.
Yeah, I just need a hat
Yes.
and my glasses.
Yeah. Where are your glasses?
So the left lens weirdly fell out. Like, I one day put my glasses
Dude,
on and
if
it
you're
just
gonna
went.
get glasses again, if you're gonna go get glasses, you have your prescription, right?
Yeah.
Go to Jins, Jins. It's a Japanese glasses company.
Oh, the ones that mail them to you, kind of thing.
Oh, they're stores.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, in Japan, it doesn't require an optometrist to give you your glasses prescription. Like,
Really?
you just go to the store and like the hourly employee gets your prescription, like does all the equipment.
So what the fuck are we paying for no, okay.
Yeah, no,
America,
that's one of the things that there's many things that America's stupid about with their healthcare.
Yeah.
That's one of them. Yeah, so it costs twice as much to buy glasses because of the necessity of a yearly prescription. So even if you have a prescription that you got a year and a day ago, you can't use that to buy new glasses. They won't let you buy new glasses.
That's annoying.
And
as
you have
shit.
to pay for an optometrist to get, yeah, so it sucks. It genuinely sucks.
Yeah, cuz like right now, I'm when
It's insane. It's insane to me that a 20-year-old kid can operate the equipment that an optometrist uses.
cuz I'm looking at Arnie East and I thought that R and N was an M. Like, I'm not saying that I'm blind, but I definitely need my glasses.
Mid-side.
Yes.
Order plug-in order.
Is there an order to plugins? Kind of.
Yeah.
Always put the limiter after the reverb.
Can we do greener on the other no, maybe I'll do that as a solo one. Let's do starting and finishing mixes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's a whole monopoly. Yeah, so go to Jins to no longer support the monopoly of glasses manufacturer. There's a whole,
Not only that,
there's a
but every
weird,
time you go
not
to an
conspiracy.
optometrist, but there's never a good enough selection.
Oh yeah, because it's all like 90+% of the glasses that are made in America that are distributed and labeled under different brands are all made by a singular company. They almost have a monopoly. That's why I'm saying go to Jins. Because if we're gonna give it a monopoly, give it to a Japanese company.
Oh, I'm gonna go find the Mexican.
Also,
one.
Jins is like really good. That's why I go. It's because like fashionably, they're just really good. Nothing's like crazy, and they have so many different styles, and they all have blue light cut. Like by standard, by default, they have like a 20% blue light cut or something like that, which is great
good.
for like staring at screens.
Yeah.
They have so many different options.
Because I have that on my lens. The only reason the lens popped out, which is weird, is I don't think they actually placed it right at first.
Oh, your glasses aren't broken.
No, they're not broken. Like, the wire is still there in place that holds the lens up, because they're frameless on the bottom. It's just a wire that holds it up, but I think that wire was out of place the whole time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Anyway, this podcast episode is sponsored by Jins. Don't you get it?
Start seeing shit straight.
Let's talk about how do you feel about starting and finishing mixes? Is that cool?
That's cool with me.
Can we get who? Let me
Can I
see
get
a
a
high
what?
five. Let me see like a hands up, a hand emoji if that's cool with everybody in chat.
I'll let you choose which finger you're pointing up.
No, just like the hand emoji.
Oh. They can't choose a finger? I was thinking the thumb.
Also, you know whose YouTube channel I've been watching recently that I find extremely entertaining
Mr. Beast.
is the I used to, but it wasn't. His stuff is entertaining, but I was more like studying his channel.
I'll
It's
be
like
honest,
a case study.
I've never watched a single video from Mr. Beast.
They're entertaining. They're really good, especially from like a case study context, like
Gotcha.
how he's grown and how he's his like storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
It's scripting. It's interesting editing. But no, I think it's called like the critical alcoholic. He like does really harsh reviews on TV shows and movies.
Mm-hmm.
And he is so eloquently spoken, and like his writing is just absolutely phenomenal. Like, so he scripts everything and basically like reads it to like clips of the movie or the whatever that he's doing, and like the way that he has like 3 different 15-minute videos where he rails on like She-Hulk,
Yeah.
but it's like hilarious because he's so fucking right.
Yeah.
And it's just like he just like destroys both the idea, the concept, the writing, what it stands for. Like by the time he's done with any video, and he doesn't do this for just She-Hulk, but for like a lot of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
And like he just so logically and like reasonably just destroys everything, except for like good movies. So like the ones that he like cannot stop praising, which is like the most recent ones is The Northman. Have you seen The Northman?
Mm-mm.
So fucking good.
I think the funny thing is that I always have to
so
explain
good.
to people I don't really watch modern or old TV. I just like I'm rewatching Dragon Ball for the first time since I was a kid.
You should watch The Northman. I recommend it. Like,
What is The Northman?
As it's a movie basically about a Viking prince seeking revenge for the guy that killed his father.
Sounds like everything I've
it's
ever heard
so
of.
fucking brutal. It makes Thor look like a pussy.
What
That's-
does it
it's
make
so
Shakespeare
brutal.
look like?
No, it's interesting. It's one of the few movies that's literally gotten me into like the brutality of it, and the storytelling is so like it throws me into that world. So by the time like, because if other movies were like, and storytelling was just that brutal, I'd be like, oh, that's gross and so brutal. But the way that
Yeah.
they told it, it's just like I'm so in the culture. And it's like I'm sympathetic of what's going on, like, or empathetic of like how they got there.
Yeah.
It's like it's incredibly refreshing storytelling and imagery, and the directing was just so good. And you should look at it just from like an artistic standpoint. It's just amazing. And the
So what
other
is it
one that
called?
he like, it's The Northman.
The Northman.
It's brutal. It's also just so good. Insightful. Like, and the another one that he only has high praises for is Joker. Like the one where he goes like insane with
Yeah.
Phoenix. What's his
Yeah,
name?
yeah,
What's the
yeah.
dude's, the
The
actor's
dude that
name?
died.
Yeah. He like he describes why they're both writing and depiction of the videography, the cinematography, and why it's all just like art.
Yeah.
And every film should aspire to be more like that. It's just like his way of explaining it. He's one of my most favorite critics. It's so entertaining. I recommend. You've seen The Joker.
I'll be
Have you seen
honest. No.
You got to watch that. That's another one you got. Well, the thing
I
that-
just said
No,
I don't
here's
really
the
watch
thing.
a lot.
So the fact is, if you haven't watched it, I think it's
Yeah.
a good thing because now you have something to look forward to. Because, dude, it is
or
so
that,
good.
or I'm be overly critical.
No. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it because know that it's. Oh man, it is so good. It is so good. Okay, we're gonna do starting and stopping mixes. I don't know how we got on that train.
How about the importance of maintaining projects outside of music, which is also very important.
Oh yeah, Jelly, you did a little. We should talk about that discussion. From the podcast. Actually, that might be like a little solo thing too. I might do, Jelly, a little solo thing, like a 15 minute thing that I have my own thoughts about, and I'm sure Lou does too. But I'm just trying to think from like an audience perspective. I feel like the demographic of the YouTube channel would like that more than podcasts. Everybody on the podcast just wants to hear technical. They say that, and then I see the statistics of which episodes get downloaded more. It just makes sense. Anyway, Joker and The Northman. I really love The Northman. Also, I finally watched Evangelion. I don't know why.
Oh, the anime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That got really weird at the end. And it's really weird that, like, it shows, like, 14-year-old nudity.
I'm not gonna lie. Rewatching Dragon Ball, I didn't realize how much was in Dragon Ball, but it's not female; it's all male. Like you see Goku's penis and balls.
Oh yeah, like children's wieners is that's green light. That's fine.
yeah, which is really funny because it's like in America there's a law against it, but seemingly that gets bypassed.
Yeah, I mean, remember the Simpsons movie where they did like the classic Japanese humor, like Bart's Wheat. Have you never seen the Simpsons movie?
No,
it's all right. I'm a movie head, so
I'm not a TV or movie head.
I'm a fan of cinematography. I don't watch TV, especially like American TV. I watch anime and movies.
Like Machi was asking me, "What's your favorite show?" And I was like, and I really had to sit there and think about it. I was like, Yu-Gi-Oh! I love, but I wouldn't call it my favorite either. I ended up deciding to claim BoJack as my favorite.
Really? That's dark.
I know, but I really like it because it's very honest and accurate. Yeah.
I like The Simpsons. I think The Simpsons are very... There's like a few American shows that I watch. Rick and Morty is one of them, and The Simpsons is the other.
You know, I'm going to be honest. I can't get into Rick and Morty. It's just too chaotic.
Dude, Rick and Morty has some like deep insight.
No, it does.
It has some like cool insight.
It does, but I'm like, it's just all the animation just makes it harder for me to indulge in it. You know,
it's fun. It's like one of the few American shows that my wife and I enjoys because we're both pretty critical of American shows.
Yeah,
especially like, dude, America sucks at drama. It's just like the weakest storytelling and writing ever.
Season 6, episode 2. Is that the one where they talk about the prolapse stuff?
No. This is the most recent one, which was about... Hold on. Oh, I literally just watched it before Season 6 just came back, and episode 2 just like came out last week.
Wait, season 6 just came back, as in they took it away?
No. Sorry, they're just starting to release it now. So I think the next episode to come out is episode 3. Anyway, well, let's get into this episode.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
It's like glitching. I don't like that. I don't know why it does that.
Also, anytime I talk, am I redlining?
No, you're fine. I have a limiter on everything.
Okay.
So we're going to do starting and finishing.
Videos.
Holy crap. We're going to do that again. Okay, here it is. Hello and welcome back to the Mixing Music Podcast. I am your host, DK. And with me, as always, is, what we're going to say? Living La Vida Luca.
I'll take it. Like I said, I got the Miami looking going today, so I'll rock with that.
Again, confused what the Miami look means.
It's one of those things when you see it, you know it.
You look like you just wrestled a crocodile. Is that what that is?
No, being that I work a lot of Latin concerts and all that for like a lot of like bigger Latin people.
You look Cuban.
We get a lot of people that like they now live in Miami and all that kind of stuff. So whenever they fly to LA for their concerts, like they look
like they just came from Miami.
There's a look. Yeah, there's a look, and
you're not wearing like a silk button-up shirt with half the buttons down. That's kind of
no, but I am an older guy with a belly with a chain with a shirt that is a little more flattering to the belly. Like I'm not downplaying myself. I'm not. I know I'm handsome. That's one thing I'll always know. I don't care how fat I get. I'll always be handsome. But today I'm looking a little extra Miami.
And I'm looking extra Asian. I don't know. Anyway, if you haven't realized, I've been out of the country for the last 4 weeks. I've been in Japan visiting family, with my wife and my in-laws, and then I finally went to go see my family in Okinawa, Japan. Hence why I look like a Hispanic Asian. It's because I'm from Okinawa. They just look different.
I thought you were gonna say you got a little more of a tan.
Sure, yeah. But it's just different out there. So that's why I have facial hair and curly hair, and I have a hairy chest. And I'm dark. That's not very Japanese.
Yeah, and I'm like the opposite, which is not very Mexican.
So anyway, I'm back 4 weeks. It was a great vacation. I did not Really, I try not to do as much work as possible. I try to do as least amount of work as possible. And like my purpose of going on vacation like every couple of years is to spend 4 weeks low key trying to get as bored as possible. So by the time I get back, I'm like ready to work.
Yeah.
So it's like a psychological trick I do to myself. And so I'm back. I'm ready to work. I feel refreshed. Although it wasn't as boring as I usually wanted it to be. Like, it was still a lot of fun, and I did a lot of things out there. But we got a lot of stuff done. And the music keeps changing, and it's bugging me. My bad, y'all. Yeah, today's episode, we're going to talk about starting and finishing mixes. What we pay attention to when we're starting mixes, what we pay attention to when we're finishing mixes, the signs of both, and how to set us up for success, and how to close, when to know when we're done, and how to close the session down. That may include client interaction as well, because I think that's very, very important for starting and finishing sessions. For example, setting expectations, and then also how to ask for revisions and react when being asked for revisions during the final stages. Yeah. So I think it's very interesting. Lou, let's get right into it.
Go.
Starting mixes before you receive the file. And let's in this scenario, let's do first-time client. Oh, no. Returning client.
Returning
client, and they email you, because that's how they typically do it. This specific client likes to email you.
Yep.
You get the files. What do you do? How do you start a mix?
First
do you
off,
set aside a day? Let's talk about like planning the day that you're gonna do it. Like, do you set aside a day to do it? Do you pick a day?
I do pick a day. Main reason is the way I like to work my schedule is I have a day for revisions and I have a day for starting and finishing.
So you have like what's your day for revisions?
Usually midweek, like
Midweek?
Wednesday, Thursday.
Cool. And what days usually start?
Mondays and Tuesdays.
Interesting. What about Thursday, Fridays?
Fridays, I'm always running concerts, so
That's
my
right.
goal is to split up the week into 4 days dedicated to mixing and mastering, and if I can, content creation within that. But if I receive a new mix from a client, usually Monday, Tuesday, I jump into the office around like 10 a.m. and I try to get to all my emails as much as I can, because Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm typically not as available. Fridays because it's concerts, Saturdays because there may be either some more concert work or some offsite work that I'm doing. Like I may be taking on a weekend recording session, at another studio. Cool. Sundays, I'm with family. Like I actively, as best as I can, try to avoid working any Sunday, or else I'm charging double.
So sweet. So you get these files, and you schedule a Monday, Tuesday, and maybe the occasional Thursday.
Yeah, exactly. Depends what's going on. Yeah.
But you typically schedule a day as soon as possible, I assume.
Yeah.
Do you let the client know when you're expecting to start it?
I tell them when to expect the first version.
Okay.
And I never say the final. I always say the first version.
Do you typically... is it normal for you to, like, when you start a mix in the AM, do you typically finish it and send it off in the PM?
No.
Or do you usually take a couple days?
I'll send it the next day. Typically speaking, it's not hard for me because I do a lot of top-down mixing, which kind of minimizes the amount of time you spend per track, if that makes sense. But because of this, what I'll do is I'll start it in the morning when I have fresh ears, and then about like 2-3 hours in, after taking like a few little breaks in between, I need to get some food, I need to get this, I gain some perspective, I'll make some more adjustments, and then I'll finish off with like automation at the end of the day for like if it's like a big mix. Like if it's a small mix, it obviously doesn't take as long. But like I'm working on an album where every single song on the album is over 250 tracks. So like those will take me a full day to mix one song, and even then I still consider it my first version.
You said 250 tracks for one song?
Yeah,
that's way above normal.
Yeah, that's typically what I'm hired for the most. I have a lot of clients that deal with like a lot of live instrumentation and want full production, so thankfully there's a lot of work, and that's why I can charge them a little more.
That's most of my clientele too, but I seem to average between 70 and 150. I rarely ever have more than 150. That's
because
crazy.
I worked with a lot of like rock producers and jazz producers coming up. You know how it is. They want more tracks, more instrumentation, more arrangement changes. Oh, we're gonna add layered drums with live drums,
like that's
and
pretty
this.
specific for that client. That's pretty impressive to do 250 tracks and get through most of it in how many hours? I assume at least 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
Pretty quick. That's pretty quick.
Yeah, it's because, like I said, once I actually sit down and dedicate a day to it, I actually get down to like my template, which is everything has to be organized. Everything has to be labeled. If not, what I'll do is I used to have Ian Bell help me out with this, but hopefully Ian recovers soon. He broke his ankle, so he hasn't been back even when he
I
came
didn't
back
know
to
about
town.
this.
Yeah, his injury was officially a full broken ankle.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
From basketball?
Yeah.
Not with me, right?
No.
No,
Or at least not to my understanding.
Yeah.
But
Because
obviously
he's played with me a few times.
Yeah. But
this is important. So I think that
mhm.
goes into. This is a great question. This is from the live stream chat on Twitch. Ken
Cool.
Mixes Music asks, "Do you prep your own mixes or do you have an assistant?"
So both. I typically do my own because I don't have a dedicated assistant right now.
It
When
was.
I do, yeah, it was Ian Bell,
Yeah.
which I would just tell him like, "Hey, can you?"
Who
prep
we met
this? Can you
through
prep
Twitch.
this?" Yeah, exactly.
You met.
Yeah, he's the one that came up with Lou Lord,
Lord?
Wielder of Swords and Lord of the Boards,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
which still
forgot about that. That's
funniest
funny.
name ever. But it's just kind of funny because I'll prep it myself for now, just to kind of get
How important is mix prep for you as like a ritual?
extremely.
Yeah.
Extremely. Everything has to be labeled properly in the right place, and then that way, when it comes to me hearing something, I know where to reach first.
And I want to be clear, like the importance of arrangement and prepping your sessions to your liking is even more important with 250 tracks.
Yeah. Because if let's say I don't like something in the snare, I don't want to have to look into the music folder, and then the music folder, it's just everything scattered. Like there's a kick all the way to the right, 50 tracks down, and then there's a kick out mic, like 50 tracks to the left, and somewhere in the middle there's a parallel kick and something. It's like, listen, all these kicks should be right next to each other and some down into their own subfolder. I don't expect my clients to always have it perfect, but this is why whenever I do work with a new client, I communicate what the bare minimums are. But if I have somebody else prep it for me, I just have them prep the routing and not the plugins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do same thing. Actually, let's keep going. So
Yeah.
you start it. So you take a lot of time or as much time as needed to prepare the session.
Yeah.
Colors, labeling,
Yep.
grouping, routing, buses. I
Yep.
assume some effects,
Yep.
some default effects that you like, and I assume you also add some during your mixing process. And you just get started. How do you attack a mix? Because you know how I
Yeah.
attack, but
Yeah.
how do you play? Do you leave everything at unison and just play and tweak from a specific order, or do you mute everything? Like, how do you start a mix?
So typically I do top-down mixing, meaning that I focus on the buses more than I focus on the individual
you start
tracks.
playing. You start playing with everything unmuted. So you're just playing the rough mix the way that they intended,
Yeah.
and then you go for. But which buses do you go for first? Do you usually go for vocals first? For
I usually go
instrumentals
for the music first. Main reason is most of the issues
What
with the
tracks in the
vocals,
music? Which just general
melody,
instrumental bus, or
melody and drums.
okay, you start with melody and drums first.
Yeah.
So like synths,
Yeah,
guitars.
because a lot of people have a different interpretation of how loud the bass needs to be, or how much of a dominant force the bass needs to be, and that's very dependent
That's
on
very
the
specific to
song.
Lou. That's interesting. I like
Yeah.
that. That's cool.
Because think about it, like on one of those records that I'm working with them, like the bass does hit hard, but it's not the bass that hits hard. It's the kick that hits hard, and the bass is supplemental to the bass. I mean, to the kick. And it usually in a lot of other genres, like the kick is supplemental to the 808 or something, which is the opposite. So your approach is very different. But if you listen to the music all in total, like just hit play on everything first and just hear it, you might actually say, yo, these are one of those records that the bass doesn't actually need to be the loudest thing. It does need to have punch, and because of that, if the bass is too loud or is not fitting the right pocket, then we need to find out. But a lot of times there's a clash between if the kick is actually tuned, you know. So I want to hear the melodies, and I want to hear how the kick actually plays with those melodies to see, okay, do I need to pitch up and down the kick? Is this a live kick where I may run into phase issues? And then I might start playing with the bass and all that. But getting the bass to fit is not my biggest issue. It's usually how do the drums and the melody work together?
And that's very like stylistic for you as well. And the
Yeah.
cool thing is that it's interesting. From what I understand, most mixers start with the vocals.
Yeah.
because that's typically the most important part of every mix. But you and I both don't start with the vocals, which is interesting on its own.
Usually the most
And I've never
issues I
heard of
find-
anybody do like
Yeah.
melodies and stuff, and obviously it works for you. It makes it sound
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
So that's just interesting. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, I also think it's interesting. It's a totally different approach from what I do. Is you leave everything unmuted, and do you immediately go into like leveling, or do you go into automation first? Do you
Panning.
go into EQing? So the first thing you do is panning.
Yeah, I want to actually see everything in its space, because I'm sure you know about like pan depth and pan low and all that kind of stuff and blah blah. Cool.
Tell us briefly explain that.
All right,
to the
so
audience.
in a nutshell, to the best of my understanding and the way it worked on consoles, is if you were to take two signals and put it down the middle, right, you actually get an overlapping of signals. So if you think about it, you'd get a 3 decibel increase, and in a perfect room with perfect acoustics, it can go as high as a 6 decibel increase, which is why you see pan low and pan depth in Pro Tools and in other DAWs. When you can actually edit it, it starts at 3 but can go up to 6.
yeah.
So depending on your room
So
and
the
its
preferences you
acoustics
can
and all
change,
that,
too.
yeah, and depending on like whether you do post production or just mixing for music, like depends what the actual pan law changes you need to make are there.
So the first thing
But-
is you like to put things in there.
In
Sorry,
it-
I don't
yeah.
want to. That whole pan law and everything like that. I don't want to get too deep into.
No, exactly. But,
uh,
if it's down the middle versus pan left, you actually do hear a difference.
mhm.
And it sounds like a level difference. The only thing is that when it's in the middle, your ear perceives it as one signal down the middle, and it doesn't actually feel as loud when it's in the left. Technically, linearity wise, it's the same volume. You know, it's been compensated, but it doesn't feel the same. So when you start panning things, you start noticing that sonically, it also eats up a different spectrum space. You know, so
This is important because first off, we've talked about on an episode where we talk about the importance of referencing in mono, not
Yeah.
mixing in mono, but referencing in mono. One of the things is that when things are panned left and right,
Mhm.
there might be frequencies that are clashing,
Yeah.
but they aren't clashing directly because they're panned in opposite directions. So you mono it to see if there's clashing frequencies, because that'll make just the left and right that much more with more clarity. But the cool thing
Exactly.
is when you pan things at the beginning, you're creating. Nobody actually listens to anything in mono.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
creating clarity from the get-go with nothing other than space.
Yeah, because the moment you start EQing things, and I see this a lot, which is not a bad thing. We all had to learn at a certain point, but when you start reaching for the EQ first, it's the same issue that I've seen people do in a recording session, which is instead of just changing the mic, instead of just changing the preamp or the distancing of yourself in front of or back from the mic or whatever, people reach for a corrective tool when there wasn't really an issue to correct. It might have just not been the right placement for it, right? Cool. So if there's too much bass in the mic, just take a step back. That's all it is. If it felt like there was too much clutter in the low mids, if it doesn't actually have to exist in the middle, what does it actually sound like when you pan it away? It might not actually be that big of an issue anymore. Now, obviously, when you consider that some people do listen in mono, then you want to do your reference checks and all that. But you might find yourself cutting less than if you were to mix everything in mono.
This is a question. I'm going to change. Ken Mixes Music
Yeah.
on Twitch asked another question, but I'm going to change the question a little bit.
Cool.
First off, is it important for you to have clients send you their rough mix of that song?
Yes.
Cool. So that's important. And I almost, like, I actually require it.
Yeah.
It's very rarely that I say, hey, like,
Don't
that
send
I
it to
don't
me.
ask me for a rough mix or
Yeah.
whatever. Very rarely. And it's usually because I'm more involved with the actual original production.
Yeah.
But okay, so you require it. You have that.
Yeah.
How often are you referencing that in the initial stages of the mix?
Extremely.
Is it more referenced in the initial stages or in the later stages or in the middle during?
Beginning and not in the middle.
Hmm.
Main reason is this. So there's kind of two layers to the first question, which is like how important is the reference to receive. It's extremely relevant, especially when when you're considering your receiving stems.
And I assume, by
You
the way,
know.
I think we've talked about this before. Everybody's a little bit different, but I think
Yeah.
we're on the same boat that when we ask for stems,
Yeah.
I require everybody to send me wet stems.
Yeah.
If they want to send me dry, sometimes I ask for dry stems, like if it's so effed up that I just can't do anything unless they send me dry stems. But they're very rarely, because
Yeah.
I assume the same thing. You want wet stems where
Kind
if you
of.
play back the stems, it is their rough mix.
Kind of. If the reverb is directly on the vocal and the delays are directly
Oh,
on
no,
the
no, yeah,
vocal,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want it.
Yeah. I asked for reverb sends to be separate audio tracks.
Yeah. That's the only reason why I don't exclusively tell people the word wet stems. I just tell them like, hey, I'm cool with the instrumental tracks being wet and all that, but like as far as the vocals and all that, like tell me what delays and what the timing are, like if it's a quarter note and blah blah blah. If you don't want to send me the bus and all that, because I also can't always just use the bus, but like just let me know what it is. I'd prefer if it wasn't directly on the vocal.
I always ask for wet stems,
Mhm.
and if they want to go the extra mile, I'll say, can you give me wet and dry stems?
Yeah.
But typically I ask for wet stems first, and then I specifically explicitly state, yo, I need your sends and effects to
Mhm.
be separate audio tracks. Like your sends need to be separate audio tracks. I don't want vocals with reverb on them. I want the
Yeah.
reverbs to be separate. And so most of the sessions that I get are like that, and it's
Exactly.
actually- so I like use that, and I can EQ those or level those, and or just be like, no, I don't like this reverb, and I put in my own.
Yeah.
It's great. And
That's
so
the main reason that the reference track is so important, because like let's say that you do get the dry stems or you get the partially wet dry. Cool. Well, when I play back, like I also want to know, did they actually level everything or bounce it leveled to how they had it? Because sometimes you'll get people who will, I like to think of it as accidentally leave normalize on in Logic, and because of that, all the vocals are really loud and close to peaking and everything, and now you got to gain stage everything down, which is another part of the process of like prepping sessions and all that. But ideally speaking, as soon as I hit play on the stems, it should sound exactly the same as your reference. I should be elevating your mix, not completely repairing it from scratch and
Yeah.
having to redo all of your leveling.
amen.
Yeah.
Another thing too is then so you start off and you're looking at panning in
Mhm.
space and using the space. How does your mentality change from the initial state of your mixing into the mid and end game of your mixing? Like, what are you paying
So
attention to? What
at
are you
the
focusing
start, I'm focusing on the groove and making sure that, like, if there was, let's say, a driving 808, what does the driving 808 and the drums do together? How does the drums play with the melody and everything, right? And how do the vocals actually sit in the mix already?
on? So like the cohesiveness of all the independent tracks.
Exactly, because like I have a lot of Latin clients, and a lot of Latin culture has always been very live and natural sounding versus like overproduced like reggaeton kind of stuff. But if you listen to a lot of reggaeton stuff, like you don't really hear like super bright vocals. You still hear darker vocals. You still hear a fuller lower mid in the vocals. So because of that, I also need to find the space and how that fits with the instruments, because like the drums may hit hard like on a reggaeton track, but if you're dealing with like live drums, like they actually have the live drums kind of thump a little more, so they kind of occupy the same space. So when I listen to the reference at the start, I'm kind of getting the vibe for it, and then trying to build and carve out that space for everything to still feel natural in the middle. And then once I start getting to the end, I might go back to the reference and say, did I preserve the energy and the feel of it? Because my goal is to make sure that the feel and the vibe is translated. The mix can always be different. It could always be brighter. It could always be darker. It could always be louder, but the energy and the vibe of the record needs to be consistent.
I like that. Okay, so
Yeah.
you go from panning again. So for you,
Mhm.
everything is playing.
Yeah.
And it's all routed. You start with panning and
Yeah.
just general listening and referencing to the rough to make sure that that general cohesiveness
Mhm.
is there.
Yeah.
Okay. After panning, what do you do?
Typically leveling. Like if I don't want to reach for an EQ unless I have
Do you
to.
level everything first before putting on inserts, or do you level and put in inserts at the same time?
Level first, then inserts.
Okay, so you actually like go instrumental level. Okay, panning level,
Yeah.
and then you start putting on inserts.
Yeah, because
Cool.
like I said, sometimes when you're panning, you actually feel like, oh, now it stands out.
This is actually super good because I do this, and you've seen me do this, and I live stream all the time on Twitch of me mixing, starting, and finishing mixes. So you know how I do this, and
Yeah.
this is actually really great contrast. Two engineers that work so closely together. I do like a totally different thing.
Yeah.
So this is so insightful. This is actually great. Okay, so you go and level everything. Do you even level the vocals, or do you treat the instrumentals first, get that tight and
So-
done, and then do you do it vocals, or do you do it all at the same time?
So it's kind of funny. If the vocals are bad, I might do the vocals at the same time, but as like a general cut on the vocal master, because I'm not trying to focus too much on the vocal, because I know there's a lot that I want to do with the vocals. I want to do the ear candy stuff and this and that. And so before I start stacking all that and creating clutter, I want to find, okay, where in the music is it already conflicting with the vocal? Just naturally? Because if I have to over process the vocal to then stand
And you're
out,
not muting the vocals. You're not working on the vocals, but they're unmuted.
if
and
the
you're only
vocals are
working on-
poorly performed, then I'm muting them.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
like there's something about like,
You just lose passion for the project or something.
yeah, I don't want to lose the initial idea.
The
It's kind of like,
inspiration.
yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah.
fleeting.
The
Yeah,
inspiration's
so
fleeting, yeah.
I typically will not mute the vocal, especially if the vocal is like a good performance and this and that. It's got its tuning right and this and that. But if it's poorly recorded vocals, I might mute them. But I need to hear where the vocals at and where the clashing frequencies are at. Main reason is sometimes, like, let's be honest, most of the stuff that's down the middle is like kick, snare, bass, and everything else kind of has some level of panning. But so do the backing vocals. So do, ad libs and all that. So I kind of want to see, okay, you know what? This Rhodes is on the left, almost hard left almost for this vibe, but it's really muddying up that ad lib vocal. So what of that Rhodes do I not need?
Yeah. And in this episode, we're not talking about the mid stage. We're talking about the beginning and the ending.
Yeah.
But I would say that's your early stage. Is there anything
Yeah.
else that you want to say that you do during the early stages? Or do you want to just go right to the end game?
When it comes to early stage, keep your volume down.
So you monitor quieter.
I monitor way quieter.
So is that different from your end game? Let's go into your end game and transition that way. Do you monitor louder towards the end?
For a specific reason. So I monitor quietly because at the beginning, because I want to focus more on the routing and the practical side of things. And then I want to, as I kind of finish with the practical, by the time I'm at the end stage, I'm not thinking practical anymore. I'm thinking creatively, completely. There's almost no practical thought anymore because at this point, I've already cleaned it up. I've already gotten the mud out of the way. I've already gotten the nitty gritty taken care of. So anything I do on top of this is just creative influence, right? So at the end of it, when I do monitor louder, it's because I want to actually feel the kick and snare. I actually want to feel the impact of it. Like, you can hear it, but can you feel it? You know what I mean? Part of it is that you shouldn't be monitoring loud. You shouldn't be monitoring at like 110 for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, like, don't do that. But like,
we know an engineer, Bob Horn,
yeah,
that monitors and loves to monitor
at like 100.
ear bleeding loud. It might be louder than that.
No, maybe, I don't know.
Dave Pizzata was in the back, and he's like, "Hey, can you turn it down for an old guy?"
No, but the funny thing is, like, I understand it too, because like, one, when you think about speakers, not to go into it, but like, the higher the wattage, it's more talking about more headroom that you have. The bigger the speaker, it's okay, you want to drive a certain amount of energy, but you need a higher amount of power to drive that size speaker. And it's not about what frequency are you putting out necessarily. Technically speaking, any speaker can put out just about any range. Obviously, some will do better than others at different ranges, but a well-calibrated speaker should be able to perform non-dependent on its size. It will do certain jobs better, sure, but whatever. But if you've got a high-powered speaker, then that means you can get louder with less distortion. So that's the benefit of it.
The headroom for speakers.
Yeah, we have smaller speakers, our Strauss NF3s, so we can't really get as loud with higher amounts of distortion, or with lower amounts of distortion. Our distortion increases the louder we get. So sometimes that's actually really good to have the PA speakers
almost have no.
Yeah,
distortion.
they're insanely fucking good.
It's a technological thing. The 5-inch woofers that we have should be distorting way more than they are.
But they don't.
But they don't.
Like,
they make ATC
I get
sound
scared.
distorted.
Yeah. They actually. I've had situations where I'm scared of how loud we're playing, and the speaker's like, "I got this. Don't worry."
Or like I hear like there was one time when we still had the ATCs, and it was the smack of the transient, and then we played the same song and the smack of the transient on the ATC, and it literally sounded like distortion. Like the smack just wasn't coming through as much, and it wasn't a frequency range thing. It wasn't because the ATC had more mid range or whatever. It felt specifically a distortion thing. Yeah, like it just the transient just wasn't as sharp.
Yeah,
it was so interesting. Anyway, we're not gonna get into that.
Like,
but
if I get louder, it's because I actually, now that I've got the track together and I'm trying to feel it, maybe I distort the bass a little bit, but I want to see, like, in that distortion, did I lose some of the definition of the punch? Like, does it hit my chest the same? You know, because when you go to a club and you go to a venue, like I said, working with a lot of Latin artists there, like, if you listen to Latin recordings, they don't really have a lot of bass in the recordings, but best believe at the show, the bass player is prime time, the leader in the band. Like most MDs in Latin music are bass players. So, and MD is musical director, so the people in charge of the arrangement for the show. But
For live show.
realistically speaking, like that is insanely important for live, but it's not necessarily for the record. Because if you listen to like Elvis Crespo's recordings, even the new ones versus old ones, like the dude that did Suavemente, like bass plays an important role, but it doesn't thump the speaker. The kick does. You know, so I'm listening for where is the energy coming from? Where is it driving it? If you listen to rock, a lot of it is like bass and kick are very blurred, but they also fill a very energetic spot where you can feel the speaker shake, even if you don't hear the definition so much in the mix.
Yeah.
You know, so like I'm monitoring loud for that, and I'm monitoring really low for the drums. When I listen to the vocals, like in this type of record, do I want the snare to stand out in front of the vocals, equal to the vocals, lower than the vocals, but I still need it to be audible. So I'm listening for transients that stand out. The S's, for instance.
So let's ask the
Yeah.
age-old question that everybody asks, like,
How do you know?
how
it's
do you
done?
know when it's done? When do you do you decide when it's done, or does the song say that it's done? For you, how do you kind of?
It's both. It's when I say anything I do, I no longer like as much as where it was. So I've started to become destructive.
So you're saying that oftentimes you go beyond done, but then you're able to recognize that you're beyond done and you kind of step back.
Exactly.
Okay. Because I
And
do the
then-
opposite thing. Like I get to done because I know I'm done.
Yeah, but the get to done for me is sometimes you have to realize, okay, I did everything that I thought and my client's waiting. I'm going to send the record to the client, and if the client says, I love it, you're done. Stop it. Stop right there. And done. I don't care if you have any more ideas. Done. Because the funny thing is, if the client loved it already and suddenly you start saying, but I heard something wrong,
Yeah. Oh, this
then
goes
you
into
just
like,
put in doubt into your client.
one of the golden rules of engineering is if someone likes your mix, if the client likes your mix, even if you hear problems with it,
Just shut
if
the
you
fuck
send
up.
a V2 or a V3 or the next version, do not change it.
Yeah.
No matter how much you think that something that they didn't mention has a problem, do not change it.
Yeah. Now, as far as like finalizing, like once I actually send it out and they approve it, I do go through a final process, which is kind of like a master check. If I'm mastering the music that I mix, which is pretty common nowadays for a lot of engineers, not always is the artist aware of like the mastering process and its own benefits or whatever, and that's totally cool. And most engineers don't always want to send out to mastering engineers because a lot of times they've already reference checked it themselves and everything. But I'll still go through like a master pass phase before I send out what I tell them is the official final master file. And then I'll upload that to FilePass and send them that. But usually in that one, I'll master within the same session.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I think any other thoughts about like Endgame?
Endgame, how so? Like as far as reaching it, or
Yeah, just like your thoughts, your mentality, what you're thinking, or what you typically do.
yeah.
at the end.
If you feel a certain way about the production, you have to voice it up or replace it and see if you can get away with replacing it. If you don't like the snare, I don't care how much you tweak it, you're never going to like it. You didn't like it from the start. And if the artist is okay with you swapping it, swap it. Like a lot of people will fight the production.
I will say most times I don't even ask. I just do it.
Yeah. Most people will fight the production when they can just replace the production. And I'm not saying that you should go in and replace everybody's production. I'm saying that if it's that bad and you have a good relationship with the client, and because we're talking in the context of like returning client, go ahead and make the decision to replace it. Communicate it if you need to, or if you feel that's best, because I'm the type of person that likes to communicate. But I usually say, hey, I feel like that snare is just missing a little bit of weight and everything. Like I can EQ it up, but it just still doesn't feel the same way. Do you mind if I add a layer of my own snares and this and that I like? And usually they're like, oh yeah, totally, do your thing. If it's going to sound better, like I trust you. And usually if it's a returning client, they already have that trust. So stop fighting the production, because even at the end of that, you're not going to like the mix. You already feel a certain way about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of it is a mind game at that point, right?
Yeah, for sure. Before we get on to my processes, and I want to kind of go through the same thoughts that you did, but for me, I want to talk about our sponsor. We are sponsored by, I'm going to keep saying us, by the Mixing Music Podcast.
Yeah.
Because did you know that we have one episode a week? But if you subscribe, you can go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive. For $4 a month or $40 a year, you can subscribe and get 3 times the amount of episodes every single week. That's right. You can get 3 episodes every week. And these exclusive episodes are all 100% technical based about production, mixing, and mastering. We have a bunch of subscribers, and it is really, really great. It is hosted by Braden Flint. Often I'm guesting as well. It is absolutely wonderful. So if you've been wanting more and more, you can't consume enough technical content, check out mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive.
Boom.
Another one is FilePass. We are sponsored by FilePass. Thank
yeah.
you so much for FilePass for sponsoring the Mixing Music Podcast. FilePass is a file sharing software and website for engineers and producers. It's really great. Lou and I use it every single client, every single session. It's a great way of making sure that they can never download your files without getting paid first. So they can play back full res audio files, but it can create like a paywall so they can't download the files unless they paid. It's really, really awesome. FilePass is also great for collecting revision comments, giving you like a to-do list of notes, timestamp notes.
If you're like me and you get distracted easily and forget what's on your to-do list sometimes as far as revisions, it literally makes it a checklist.
So if you're interested in that, the best deal that you can get on FilePass is mixingmusicpodcast.com/FilePass. All right, let's get back into it.
Cool.
How I start mixes is very different. So I get a lot of influence from Leslie Brathwaite, who is one of my mentors. What I do is I also spend a lot of time with my preparation. I arrange them, order them, rename them, color them in a specific way, route them, bus them, folder tracks, whatever, in a way that works for me.
Yeah.
And for me, the way that it works is I do instrumental before vocals, and I typically start with the bass and then immediately go into kick drum, snare. So like drums.
Yeah.
And the way that I do it is I don't play I have a rough, and I always ask for a rough. That's very, very important. What I do is I mute every single track, and then I unmute the bass, and I work on the bass, and then I unmute the kick. So it's the kick and bass together, and I work on the kick, and I slowly unmute one track at a time until I get through the entire instrumental, and then I work on the buses.
Gotcha.
So typically, I kind of do like top down, but I still do more work on the buses, but I tweak the individual tracks with the intention knowing that I'm going to mess with the buses later.
Yeah.
It's that one by one mentality. So I do not play all the tracks at the same time, and that's a very specific to DK thing. I'm very much focused and thinking about making the kick and bass sound good together and by themselves.
Yeah.
And then everything else is kind of molding around that. So, like characteristically with my mixes, the punchiness of the low end is very, very important to me, and the drums in general. And then as I unmute everything, I'm doing everything. So I'm doing panning, I'm doing leveling, I'm doing inserts one at a time. And then as I'm unmuting them, if I find something's not working, I'll go back to those things, but I don't at any point unmute everything just for a reference.
Yeah.
If I want to reference something, I listen to the rough mix, because oftentimes I'll listen to the rough mix constantly the entire time I'm mixing, but it's mostly for understanding the purpose of this individual track. Yeah. I noticed that I just unmuted a really loud tambourine, but I still don't have the context of what that tambourine is supposed to be doing in the context of the song.
Yeah.
So then I pull up the rough mix and be like, okay, the tambourine is meant to be this loud driving force in the song. So now I know how to mix it without listening to the rest of the tracks. And that's a very, like, Leslie does the same exact thing. It's an easy way for me to stay focused and with initiative the entire track. And you'll be surprised a lot of the times, and the more experience I get and the more I mix, the less and less I tend to do. I think it has a direct correlation to the longer I've been doing this, the better my clients get as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like like the mixes that I'm getting now, the stems that I'm getting now versus 5 years ago are significantly better.
And if you're working with the same clients, they've been getting better.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a big part of it. So like I'm proud to say that 90% of my clients just do not send me bad stems, and I don't really work on bad songs, which is really awesome. So if you're one of my clients, be proud, because I'm saying I don't work on shitty songs. I will say a mentality thing though, that is very specific to me, is that I do a very production approach. Like I'm a mixer and I'm mixing, but I'm producing along the way.
Yeah.
So there's going to be times, like it's not weird for me, and especially if I have a good relationship with you, it's not going to be weird for me to recognize, oh, this hook is not hitting very hard. I want more low mids. And I'll recognize, like from a mixer standpoint, I want more low mids that's going to make the chorus hit way harder. But I don't want to EQ in more low mids from the existing tracks.
Yeah.
So from a mixing perspective, I'll produce and be like, I'll add a driven guitar to fill in those low mids.
Yeah.
Like, so I'll be like creative as I'm unmuting things. Typically I do that sort of stuff after everything's unmuted and I'm kind of like working on the cohesiveness of everything. Mid-game, we're not going to talk about mid-game, and then I go on to vocals and I do the same thing. Lead vocals, backgrounds, harmonies, whatever. Harmonies, backgrounds, and I unmute one at a time, do the buses and whatnot. And then so end game, so at the end is when I do all of my effects and automation. So mid-game, I'm probably the least creative. I'm thinking about cohesiveness. And but end game, I'm back to being ultra creative, and that's where my automation comes in. That's where my reverb throws, delay throws, any sort of throws, parallel compression, even some compression, EQ, creative moves and whatnot. But I'm back to being ultra creative, trying to get everything cohesive. Everything is at this point, because of the mid game, is sounding super tight and together. It's done, and this could be a finished mix. But now I'm doing that extra 10% that only DK can do.
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of where I go. And then after I listen to this song and I don't have any more ideas, it's like, yeah. Because I think I feel like I do a pretty good job knowing when not to do something. Because I also feel like if you force too many delay throws or too many reverb throws or too many like ear candy things, it also just becomes corny.
Yeah. I had that with the other day with a client where they're like, I feel like we can do more, and we started doing edits, and I'm like, I feel like it took away from the record. I mean, it's your record, but ooh.
Yeah. So I feel like I have a pretty good sane understanding of when I'm done.
Yeah.
And it's when I understand that I'm no longer inspired to do anything else.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not feeling anything else. It's done. And and I feel like this is the difference, is that I think other people feel that, but they don't have the confidence to recognize that's when it's done.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm just really confident in knowing that, yeah, that's it. All right, I'm done.
I think the I guess you could say the lazy person in me, because let's be honest, we're all by nature wanting to do less, but me recognizing that, I'm always trying to like, okay, is there anything else? I know I don't necessarily hear it, but is that me being lazy or is that me not hearing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I try it and I'm like, okay, you know what?
That's a good
It's not
point.
working. It's not working. All right,
Do you
cool.
find yourself... So first off, this is actually really great. In the end game, you're tired. Maybe you're tired. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not, because you refresh the next day. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there are moments when you get lazy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody does. I think it's extremely important to take your breaks, aside from your ears, but you getting perspective. Like one of my favorite things to do as an end game monitoring trick is, if I was in Studio A like I used to be all the time, go play around a Smash and leave the TV's audio running and the session playing. And if nothing caught your ear as a distraction or felt like, wow, that was kind of bland right there, then yeah, you're done. You know, but a lot of times if I start feeling lazy where I'm just like, I'm tired of working on this, like, okay, is it that you don't hear anything and that's why you're tired, or are you just getting tired for the day? Do you need to eat? like what? Because sometimes like you hear a mix the next day and one thought is, I don't know what I was thinking there. I should take that out. And that's why I said, like, I usually send it out the next day because I want to give myself the day listen, where you first thing in the morning, fresh ears, you just wake up and you're like, let me listen to the mix. Okay, you know what? That kick's kind of loud. Okay,
I'm gonna be totally honest and say I should do that because it does help. And very rare, I thought to myself, have I ever listened to it a second day and then accidentally made it worse after the second day? I can't really specifically think of a time. I'm sure it's happened.
Yeah.
Maybe I get more frustrated than my original frustration, so I go back to the original mix just because I was getting in my head. Yeah. But like 9 times out of 10, it usually is a little bit better.
Yeah, and for me, it usually shows me more of what I could have added.
Yeah, but typically speaking, maybe it's a pride thing or a confidence thing, and maybe it's a laziness. I think it's a confidence thing. I rarely ever listen into a second day. If I do, it's already out. It's after I send it, and then I'll leave notes myself.
Yeah, I do it, and I'll do that on FilePass.
I'll FilePass and like say that.
Yeah, you're just commenting and everything. You're like, the client's not going to get the notification. I am.
Yeah.
They might see it the next day if they check the link.
Yeah, no, because I want to communicate that I'm like, I think it's also. It's not horrible or horrendous because it also shows that I'm paying attention. I'm giving it extra thought. But yeah, I typically don't leave any comments, and for some reason, when I'm done, and that's it, and I don't need to. I send it. I work on it and send it the same day.
Yeah. And
very rarely does that hurt me.
Yeah.
If the client doesn't like it, it's for other reasons, not because I sent it the same days. Yeah. Which is really interesting. Honestly, I think that's very different. I think it's a very DK thing.
Like, it's kind of funny because somebody was telling me recently, they're like, like, I feel like I kind of need to correct this. I need to correct this one word, that word there. And there's a certain point, too, where, like, Endgame is also noticing that, like, if your client is overthinking a certain process, you also have to kind of communicate that, hey, your client may not believe it's Endgame, but you need to communicate when you honestly believe your end believes it's Endgame.
Yeah.
Like one word being off and this and that. Like, I have a client who said, I feel like this word is a little bit darker. Okay. You brighten it up. Now it's too bright. Can we darken it a little more? But if it's just one word that's the issue and you've never heard the issue, maybe you should communicate you're overthinking it. Now, that's not the thing you should do for every time there's revisions. It's hard to communicate
that and have basically spit in their face without spitting in their face, you know?
Because recently I had a conversation with a client where we're already in the mastering stage for that, album, 250 tracks each song, blah, blah. There's a lot of vocals. There's a lot of musical instrumentation. There's been a lot of work that went into it because we recorded everything at the studio and everything. Like, it's been a lot of work. But suddenly he's like, I think I'm going to respit the vocals, this and that. And the other artist is like, yo, why do you keep letting him re-record himself? You know that what he had was good. It's like, hey, at a certain point, it's not on me to build their confidence in their takes or this and that. If their issue is with their performance and all that, it's not a mix thing, which means you now have to communicate the difference between a mix and production edits and all that stuff.
So I think going back to like the early game, I think setting expectations is part of the early game too. So for me, this does happen and people try to get away with that. But and this is something that you're just going to have to learn with experience. But if you're going to give people bad news, it's better to give them bad news before you start.
Yeah.
So for example, it's better to say, hey, I'm going to limit the number of revisions, or you can say, I do unlimited revisions, but I reserve the right to say nah when I feel like you're getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
And, and just like mentioning that. And, I think there's ways that you can avoid it. Like, for example, re-recording vocals is not mixing.
Yeah, it's not.
And that's an extra fee.
Yeah. And that's how, thankfully, we've been able to run it.
And then you find to see, like, people always want to change, but the real test is like, $50 for a revision fee, or do I want to change it so bad that it's worth $50?
The way I've told people
let them decide.
The way I've told people is this: I have unlimited revisions, but after about like 5-6 revisions, if we're starting to notice that these revisions are extremely minor, and not to say that they're not going to make a big part in the mix or not, but rather if we keep going back like, hey, can you take this vocal down like half a dB? Can you do this back up half a dB? If you have me going back and forth on things and it seems to be one-sided as to where it's coming from, there is a fee after 10 revisions, and it is $100 a revision, which means you're paying 20% of the actual mixing fee towards the revisions after 10 revisions. And I don't always exercise this, but you kind of know after the third revision. You kind of know after the third revision where you're like, hey, I know we're on our third revision. Just to communicate, I do have this policy after the 10th. I don't think we'll have to go that far, but in case I know that these are kind of more minute things, try to batch as many of the revisions that you need done into one batch versus keep sending them out one by one. Because sometimes the end game isn't necessarily that you have to do revisions or not. Sometimes it's if they give you one revision note at a time.
Yeah.
That can take a lot longer than if they gave you all 10 in one shot.
Yeah, there are times where I confirm with the client, is this any more notes? I want to make sure you got all of them before I get started. And this is where it starts to become interpersonal meta skills, and rather, there's no one right way to do things. You have to be able to understand the human spirit.
Yeah.
and be able to, like, low-key read people, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that...
Understand how to read the room.
Yes, yeah, be able to read the room so you can better serve them. And
yeah.
At the same time, you want to be effective. You don't want them to waste your time, and honestly, you don't want to waste their time.
Exactly.
I mean, generally speaking, if I were to pay you a substantial amount of money for mixing my song, and I did not have the means or the ability to mix to your level, and I find the value of your mix to be something worth paying for, I want to make sure that by the end of the song, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And I got what I paid for. At the same time, the cool thing about this, and the thing that most artists forget, or not most, but many artists forget, is that it's in the engineer's best interest to make it their best mix that they've ever done as well.
Exactly.
People like sometimes, especially newbie and artists, start to like think that they're battling against the engineer. No, the engineer, you're paying them for them to give you feedback too.
Yeah.
Like I would be giving you money for you to give me the okay.
Yeah.
And if you thought something was wrong and you didn't tell me, I feel like if something was wrong, I'm paying for you to tell me.
Yeah.
So it's this balance, but some artists just really don't want that feedback.
Yep.
And they're very
they're just
prideful.
work with what you got.
Yeah, so you got to be able to read that. So I think the end game, as far as like from a technical mixing standpoint, the last thing that I do is after the mix is done, I put on plugins and inserts for the master bus, and I start mastering it. And most of the time, because I do mastering for many clients and labels as a standalone offering, I don't promote it because I don't typically want to be a mastering engineer yet. I still like mixing. But when I'm mixing, I will do a mastering in the same session and do my insert thing to the point where if someone else was to master my song, I will leave on my mix bus processing. That is part of my sound. So like when I have you master my stuff,
there's a limiter on it.
I think I take off the final limiter. I think I leave because I usually use like 2 or 3 limiters. Usually 2.
I'm not gonna lie, I use 3, but I don't use 1 to limit. There's a specific tone that I like. There's a specific tone thing that it does that I like.
Okay. That's a different conversation, but that's interesting. But yeah, so I take off the final limiter, so it's not like sausage, and it's quieter. Because I'll do limiting, but I make sure that the output is the same as like before the insert, so I can bypass it and hear what the limiter is actually doing. And then I do a final limiter, which raises the volume. I send you everything. I may even take off the first limiter too. Depending on the context.
I'll be honest. I think the last song you had me master was like -1 true peak headroom.
Oh, really?
I think so, because I remember thinking like...
I also mix loud.
Yeah.
I also mix real loud.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, my final limiter maybe boosts 1 decibel.
This is a DK and a Leslie thing. I did this because I was lazy, but then I found out that Leslie does the same thing, so I just don't feel bad about it anymore.
Do you mix into a limiter?
No. Sometimes my buses will be clipping, and if I can't hear it, I don't care.
Oh, that should be the golden rule for anybody. That was literally the thing on consoles. It's like,
People
the
like,
needle is slammed all the way to the right. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, like interns will be like, DK, your drum bus is clipping. I'm like, yeah, do you hear it? No? All right, we're good. Okay. Yeah. Like, I feel like from a gain staging perspective, I typically mix louder, which changes the tone of my mixes.
Yeah.
Like,
which, I'll be honest, everybody's talking about the new wave being everybody's going to start mixing in 32-bit and blah, blah, blah. Let's be honest. Nobody's done it quite yet that consistently. But with the whole floating point thing, like almost limitless headroom, digitally speaking, like we're talking about 1,000 decibel headroom. Yeah, you could redline and it technically would never clip audio-wise. You could redline.
I don't know the science of how that works, but I feel like it would.
No, so you can actually render a 32-bit clipped track and then just drag it down in clip gain and you'd actually see the dynamics come back.
Really?
That's the whole idea behind 32-bit floating point. It's the idea of limitless headroom.
Okay, I did not know that. That's
yeah,
interesting.
there's limits within your DAW, but the idea is that it in itself is virtually limitless.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's cool. But anyway, as far as like end game and first game or start of the game, end game, I think that's
Mid game.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about mid game, but I think that's pretty important. So
Yeah.
one, kind of some key takeaways from what I learned from both of us talking here, is how you start a mix. So first off, having a rough mix to reference is very important.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty consistent across the board for every mixer.
Yeah. Except Jason Joshua.
Well, I think he does.
No,
I asked him specifically. He does. Yeah.
He does have the rough mix, but fuck it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So rough mixes are important for most people, and they use it for referencing, organization, coloring, all of that. Workflow and organizing is super important for the purpose of getting through it faster.
Yep.
For staying focused and getting through a mix faster. Everybody starts mixes differently. You just need to figure out it. And the thing is, if you don't have a specific way to start, it's okay. The way that I start and the way that I end mixes always evolves.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be evolving over time to kind of refine how you do it. But if you don't know how you start mixes and you get like anxiety every time you start, it just means you haven't done it enough.
Yeah.
And once you start building neural pathways and habits after like repeated actions, it's going to become something that the habits that you do, whatever you do to start a mix and to end the mix, should be habits for the purpose of staying in the zone, getting in that flow state and focus. You don't want to, you want to relieve your brain of the stress that it takes to think about how to start a mix. You just want to start it and get immediately into the flow state as fast as possible. So whatever you do, it doesn't matter if you unmute everything and start with your melodies, or if you mute one track at a time, or if you do something else. It doesn't matter. The point is, if you're used to it, if you like a certain way, even if your reason is because I'm lazy, I think that's a valid reason. Or it's like, I visually like this. That's a valid reason, like whatever. Or this is my logical reasonings that I've come up with. That's a great reason too. Whatever it is, it's a decent idea to start habits and be open-minded to continually refining those habits over time, even if it's a slow process.
Keep in mind, DK and I use templates, but those templates are not based around a sound. They're just based around getting started fast and keeping us organized in a way that works for our efficiency's best interest.
This is interesting. Every time I talk about making my own plugin presets, so plugin presets and session templates
are completely
a bunch
different.
of noobs on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels will like downvote it, hate it.
Yeah.
Be like, presets, templates. Nah, it is very important that you utilize this stuff. It is not a noob thing, because using templates as a noob is buying templates because you want that Chris Brown vocal and it automatically puts in inserts for you and then you leave it. That's not good.
Which, industry secret here, if you want that Chris Brown vocal sound, in his recording template, it's a +3 decibel boost on a high shelf, and that's it. Literally, that's it. So Chris Brown doesn't record with a million plugins. He records with FabFilter Pro Q3 with a 3 decibel boost above 10K on a shelf, and that's absolutely it.
Yeah, so, and also the engineer, the microphone, the room, the chain, everything, right? But anyway, so coming back to that, we use templates, but it's just routing. So my template is a master bus with insight and tonal balance control from iZotope. That's all it is.
Yep.
And a mix bus, which is empty, that feeds into the master bus, and everything feeds into the mix bus. And then I have a verb 1, verb 2, delay 1, delay 2 that are empty. No, I actually started filling in verb 1 and verb 2 with like default Valhalla presets, but then I changed them. So all it is just preset routing for the sole purpose of so I can start mixing 30 seconds faster,
Yeah.
a minute faster. So it's just less time. And there's small things too, like I turn off pre-roll and I adjust the tempo and things like that, or like my view is different from tracking versus mastering. Small things that just help me get into the zone faster. That's all it is. I'm not relying on the template for tone. I'm still creating my own. Same thing with presets. Like if I have presets, it's like, for example, many of my presets are just zeroed out because the default on the plugin
Automatically
is
do
like
this
already doing
weird
something.
thing.
Yeah, it's already doing something,
Yeah.
so I just zero everything out and I create a new preset.
Like my favorite thing that is not technically zeroed out is Pan Man from Sound Toys.
Yeah.
Why does it only go to the left as the default? You know, I thought the idea was Pan Man going like left to right was the default thing most people wanted it for, but instead it's like nope. 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 It's like, God, that's annoying.
So things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's important to, again, for the purpose of helping you get into flow state.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it for this episode. This
I think
actually
so.
ended up being pretty cohesive. It's an hour-long episode. Thank you so much for listening. Once again, if you're interested in listening to more content about from the podcast, you can go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive. I do a lot more content outside of the podcast, including live mixing. You can watch me live, or you can watch my previous live streams, and I do additional content on my YouTube channel. That's Mixing Music Podcast /YouTube. My most recent video, I actually talked about Lou's tracking template.
Oh, yeah.
And how to record vocals fast on Pro Tools. It's one of my most popular videos. It's really great. I give you the link to Lou's recording template. Really, really important video, I think, especially if you're trying to record vocals for a living.
Yeah. If you need the technical breakdown, there's an associated video for that too.
Yeah, and I think that's linked in the description for that video as well. Lou has a channel. Anyway, that's that. For more information, there you go. Just go to mixingmusicpodcast.com. All right. On that note, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all of our current and new monthly subscribers. Happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
Nice. I'm almost like trying to like hum the sound of the outro in my head, but I can't think of it for some reason.
Why is it grayed out? I've never seen that before.
Muted. Unassociated outputs. Maybe because you have the track muted.
Oh no, hopefully it works.
Oh, because you have the track muted.
That was interesting.
Weird.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, me either.
Let's do another episode. Is that cool if we do one real
Yeah.
quick? Maybe we do
Yeah.
a shorter one?
Let's do it.
We have 14, 15 people watching us right now, which is crazy.
Oh my God. Henry at 216 texted, I'm outside.
Is he still here?
I'm going to call him.
Yeah, we did not.
My phone's on silent, so I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't see him either. Did he get a new number?
No. But he might become Keisha's personal trainer.
Oh yeah, you told me about
Yeah.
that. I need some food. I did not eat lunch.
I did not either.
Let's do this real quick. I think my wife made lunch and I just haven't grabbed it. Let me grab it. Quick break. So we did that one. Starting and finishing mixes. Do you want to do buses versus separate tracks? How we treat buses versus separate tracks.
Sure.
So it's like very similar.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Let's do a philosophical one.
The idea behind tracks versus buses? Let me see. So I'm trying to call Henry because... Yo. My bad. Henry came by at 2:16 and he's like, I'm outside. And me and DK were on live and our phones are on silent, so I didn't see it. Well, if you run right now, DK is just getting food into his microwave and microwaving it. So like we're here on a quick little break before recording the next episode.
Do you want to just leave it with his leave it with his wife and I'll just grab it from her?
Sure. I mean, I'll just let him know. Yeah. Sure, I'll just let them know. Yeah. Just make sure. Well, you've seen how the calibration process works, right?
Yeah.
Just make sure you put the serial number into it, because the serial number is on the mic. And so when you open the app and you say, "Oh, it's a Sonar Works mic," like it's gonna ask you for the serial number.
Okay, so I just have to input that.
Yeah. And then from there, it'll walk you through all the calibration process.
Okay, bet.
Yeah.
All right, for sure. All right, thanks, Lou.
Not a problem. Later. All right, we got him going. All right, so let's see. What do you think about limiter on DJ set? And I bought Ozone and put it into Tractor latest update. You know, I've been wondering what's going on there. If Native Instruments is involved with Isotope or what's going on. I don't know it officially. But on a DJ set, should you put a limiter? Like, if you're talking like an album kind of style thing where you're just kind of putting out like mixtapes, then yeah, totally throw a limiter on it. If you're talking about live, I'll be honest, it's a lot easier for the engineer to just use his fader. I don't even use a limiter or master bus compressor when I'm doing like live mixing and all that for concerts. Main reason is if I wanted something to hit harder, I'm just going to make it louder, you know, and I don't really need a compressor getting in my way. And not always is everything always going to be the same output level. And depending, like if the band starts hitting harder, like the drums and everything, I don't want it to start crapping out in the middle of a set. So as far as doing it for like just a DJ set, as far as like releasing recordings, like I said, like mixtape stuff, totally. Yeah. Throw a limiter on it. Make sure you're competing loudness wise. You don't have to squash your mix to do that, but you know, it doesn't actually hurt. Yeah. Henry picked up. He's asking if it's possible so that he doesn't interrupt us to leave it with your wife.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. But let's see. Hello, I was wondering your thoughts on stem mastering. So instead of mastering one audio file, mastering from the stems themselves. And if that's even a real thing. Yeah, that's absolutely a real thing.
Well,
I actually make a good amount of money.
We got to
for that.
define that because there's two types of stem mastering. We both agree it's a regular thing and it's a good thing to do one of those things, but the other version is bullshit.
I think both are good.
The other one is a master. It's a marketing scheme. It's not really a real thing.
It really depends on the intended output. I think the process is exactly the same, but the intended output difference is what makes it bullshit on one, not the other.
One is mixing for bitches, and the other one is submitting stems for labels and publishing.
Exactly. So it really depends on what you're doing. Like if you're mastering with stems because you think that you might be right. You might be able to clean out some mud in the mix. Sure. But that's not really mastering. That's doing submixes.
I don't know.
You know? Okay. It's on the piano in the house. Ask his wife for it. Boom. Yeah, so the other one...
I do stem mastering all the time, but I master it.
At that point, I don't really consider it mastering anymore. That's not really stem mastering. That's just mixing down the stems and mastering the final rendering. You know what I mean? Because you're not providing stems after, are you?
So the only time that I do stem mastering is from the label where I just master for them.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I do it with this specific client, and it might be different from your experiences.
Mm-hmm.
When I master the song,
Mm-hmm.
they approve it.
Mm-hmm.
They also send me the stems,
Mm-hmm.
which is like 5-6 stems. It's not much more than that. At most 10 or 12, you know.
Yeah.
The entire purpose of me mastering the stems is to get them to sound like the master. So I'm just trying to match the tonality and the leveling and the sound of the master that was approved, and then make sure that there's enough headroom, like I think like -2 dBs of headroom,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all it is.
Yeah, so
So that way
I actually
they have, like,
go
specific
an
deliverables.
opposite way. So typically speaking, when I'm doing stem mastering, I'm asked to master the record in the process. So the way it's coming in is the way that it's coming in, and that's supposed to match. I always check with the engineer that I'm being sent the mixes from, like, hey, if I play back straight on this, will it sound like your master or your reference mix or your final mix or whatever? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh, yes, it does. I'm like, okay, did you apply to each one of these your bus processing? Like, do they all still go through the same chain? If so, great. I don't really have to do any kind of matching or anything.
That's what I do. So
Yeah.
So for the for the song, the stereo track that they want me to master,
Is it matching the
It
mix
was-
or matching their master?
they basically took off all the mastering stuff. So they mastered it for the sake of and put stuff on the mix bus for
So that's
the rough.
typically the opposite
So
way
I
to do
sometimes
it.
I
Yeah.
get like reference masters,
Yeah.
but they like and then the file that they send me for like proper mastering,
hmm
they've taken everything off.
Yeah. So I tell people keep it on. If you got a compressor on it and it's part of the groove and the sound that you like,
And sometimes
Keep
they
it
keep it
on.
on, but it's
Yeah.
up to them.
yeah. But when it comes to stem mastering,
'Cause
typically
they- 'cause
speaking,
and usually in the cases where I'm doing stem master, there's an A&R involved
Mhm.
that approves it.
yeah.
So if they said, "Hey, leave the compressor on," that would be like something that the A&R
Yeah,
would,
exactly.
would mention to them.
So, typically speaking, what I'll do is they'll send me the stems of the final mix, and it'll just be like drum bus, bass bus, melody bus, lead vox, and backing vox, and maybe if there's a feature like a feature vox and feature backing. And then from there, I'm processing the master bus more than I'm processing the individual stem sometimes. Main reason is that it's all going to have to be cohesive in sound anyways, and to think that you can do that on the stems only and only put a limiter at the end is also kind of unfounded. Think about how you master a typical record anyways. You're taking the full mix and applying it as a full mix. So to apply the mastering only to the stems and not the actual bus is also kind of like slightly foolhardy if you think about it.
Also, the way that you're describing,
Mhm.
it's pretty smart. And also, there's a distinctive difference, and this is where I feel like. By the way, Linhart, this is for you. What I don't like, what you're talking about, they come to you with stems and you're just mastering for them. That's fine.
Mhm.
I don't like when engineers offer stem mastering in place of mixing.
Yeah.
So that's and I see that quite often with like newbie engineers.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, like you already mixed it or whatever, so just give me the stems and I'll like basically finish the mix, but I'm gonna call it stem mastering.
Yeah.
I think that's bullshit.
No, at that
But
point,
what you're talking about, they're coming to you with that intention already.
yeah, like
that's not what-
you might want to like clean up the low end by putting like a sidechain on the low end of, let's say, the bass and have it triggered by the drum bus. But it's not like you can do it by the individual kick or anything. You're not supposed to be remixing the record. But you might say, hey, in the mastering process, I'm hearing this issue come up, and you can kind of attack that issue with the individual stem. And that's great.
I will say,
But you have to render that in real time. You have to render that and make sure that when you give these stems to, let's say, the production manager of a film, and you say, hey, here's the stems to the track you ordered for replacement, it has to play back exactly the same as the master. Exactly the same. Sure, they might have to put a final limiter. Maybe there's a peak difference because there's not other elements playing into the limiters and all that stuff individually. Sure. But it has to sound exactly the same. So it's not about mixing each track and then making it better. No, it's about getting the master to translate and making sure that the stems equally translate when played individually.
Yeah. Also, I was going to say something pretty important to distinguish everything, but
Stems, mixing top down.
what was I going to say? It's going to come to me soon. I forgot what I was going to say.
That's cool. But
Oh,
yeah.
I remember.
Cool.
Oh, I will say, if I mix something
Mhm.
and I send it to Lou for mastering because the client or the A&R asks for it, always hires Lou for mastering, and Lou comes back to me, whether they tell me directly or through the A&R. Hey, he thinks he can do it a little bit better. Can he get the stems?
Mm-mm.
I will fucking never send you anything ever again.
Good. I don't
Yeah.
want to see you anymore.
No. In the sense that, like,
I could do it better.
yeah, basically, you're just you're just shitting on the mix engineer.
Yeah.
And that's the culture that I'm trying to get rid of specifically.
Yeah.
Is I've literally, like, so there was one dude, He's like, can I? And it was for a client, like a label session. There was thousands of dollars in play. And he's like, the mastering engineer, who does probably less mastering than I do, is like, he's like, hey, can I get everything except for the kick drum separated?
Except for the kick
And
drum
it was one where you specifically, when I showed you the mix, you specifically mentioned how good the kick drum sounded.
Mm-hmm.
Like you specifically, a third party had said, oh, that kick drum sounds great.
A third-party mastering guy.
Yeah. And then he was asking for the kick drum separately because he thinks he literally, because it was like, I think I could do a better job. That's what he said.
That's really
And I like, that is like the rudest thing I've ever heard in my, bitch, like you can do it. And then the A&R started talking to me. He's like, hey, like, it's because he uses analog equipment. Then do it in the box. Like if that's really the reason, do it in the box. You're not touching my mix. It's that's where I get upset.
Yeah.
So don't ask me. Don't ask someone else to stem master after I've already mixed it.
Unless it's gonna keep true to the mix.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Or at least don't tell me.
I mean, they're gonna ask you for the stems anyways,
Yeah, that's fair.
and it has to match the mix.
This is important too.
And I think part of that is also you want to make sure that your ego isn't getting in front of your work.
Also, if you're an engineer, I think this is something that should be mentioned, but nobody talks about this. No matter what level you are, if you have good file management and like if you're using a cloud-based service, so you have clients that, even if it's the early days of your career, but if someone in 5 years wants publishing rights to a song or sells the song or whatever, make sure to always either zip up the Pro Tools file or the DAW session and upload that into the cloud as well, so you can open it up whenever, or print the instrumental, the lead vocals, the background vocals, and the stems every single time.
Yeah.
So that way, whenever they come back to it, and I wouldn't do like the long version where you print all of the stems through the master book, so you have to do like 18,000 bounces. I'm talking about just like do Shift Option Command B highlighting the tracks.
Yeah.
And then just do it the quick way, because if they ask you for stems later and you don't have the session, then at least you'll have those. And make sure to send that to the clients. I'll just save you so much more hassle.
If you want an easy one, if you download my template, everything's organized in a way where I should only have to click the folders, stem that, and I'm done.
Yeah, same with me. That's
Yeah.
how I
Yeah,
organize myself.
it's once again, templates are not necessarily about a certain sound. Sometimes it's about getting the job done faster and more efficiently.
Yeah. Okay, let's do. You want to talk about finding your sound?
Sure.
Let's do like a. 20,
I don't even know if I have.
Oh, this is even more than let's talk about that.
Sure.
Because I think that a lot of listeners have a hard time either deciphering sounds, and some people recognize them, but like, I don't know. I think there's a conversation to be had about that. Okay. Ready?
Yeah. Oh, wait. Hold on. Let me get a good chug.
Hold on. Wait. Let me get some more better Nintendo music here.
By the way, why did I see like a completely yoked up Ness?
Don't worry about it. Do not worry about it, dude. Don't worry. Okay.
I'm more concerned than worried.
Hold on. Give me a second. Okay. Let's start.
Let's do it. You don't just do Alt C?
Alt C.
Well, you don't have option.
Option. It's just the keycap, but there's no option. It was a Windows keycap set.
That's why I was like Alt C, but Alt C is clear.
Super is
clips.
command. Super is command on this. My command is called super on this keycap
Super
set.
M.
Yeah,
Super mute.
No, I accidentally pressed the wrong key. That's what I did.
Oh.
All right. Hello and welcome back to the Mixing Music Podcast. I am your host, DK. And with me, as always, is Guapo Luis. What is Guapo?
Handsome.
I knew it. Guapo Luis. It doesn't even rhyme. No alliteration. Someone on... it's your mom on the Instagram chat that said that.
Oh, shit. It really is. Hold on. You got to show the camera now. You got to show the camera.
We're
That's
live streaming on Instagram, and someone's like, "Que guapo Luis." What?
Yeah.
That means what? What, handsome Lou?
No, it's like what? Like what handsome Luis?
Ah.
Which said in my voice makes it creepy.
Yeah, that's so fun. The fact that it's literally your mom that just makes me laugh.
It's like the ultimate your mom joke.
Yeah, except it's
like
real.
my
And
mom
it's
thinks
like
I'm
really
handsome.
nice, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What's funny is she cut my hair yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah,
it does look
aw,
nice. Oh,
yeah,
Guapo
yeah.
Luis.
I was telling the interns today when I came in, everybody noticed the haircut. They're like, damn. I'm like, yeah. Normally I'm Lou. Today I'm sexy.
Guapo Luis.
Guapo Luis.
Okay, so today's a good episode of the podcast. We're hoping to keep it kind of succinct and short. Is the idea and the concept of finding your sound and what that means.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Before off mic, off show, Lou mentioned, I said we should talk about this, and he's like, cool. And then Lou said, I don't know if I've exactly found my sound, which I replied with, that's perfect. I think there's more that we could talk about then, and there's more that we can contribute to this conversation. Let's talk about this. All right, Lou. Usually I like to start off with asking you the questions as we kind of dive into things.
I mean, that makes you a great host.
Kind of set direction, right? Thank you. Lou, you recognize when you listen to other people's mixes on Spotify or Tidal or whatever the heck
I'm
you
a
use.
Tidal guy.
Okay,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. Excuse me.
Hey, I want to pay you per play more.
Okay, but when you're listening to other people's mixes, do you find that the engineers that you're listening to have a sound sometimes?
Yes. You can kind of hear it in like. I guess when
if
you
you're
know
able
like
to prefer one engineer over another, that means
you kind of
they
identify
have
their
sound,
sound.
yeah.
And when you start noticing, it's like it's not necessarily that they're like bassier or anything. It's like I really like how they do their S's. I really like how their snares are really loud and they seem to poke out the mix, but they're not really transient.
yes,
Like
I've noticed.
you start picking out little details about what they do.
Like for example, something what we talked about in the past is I think Manny Marroquin is kind of an interesting engineer to study
His
because
S's are pretty loud.
yeah, well that specifically on some of his songs, but I think he's one of the most interesting to study because I think he has the least amount of consistency tonally.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about like he mixes John Mayer and then goes into Post Malone and then goes into Charlie Puth.
Yeah.
And then recently did was it Drake? Yeah, Drake's like a major
oh, that's
portfolio.
right. You're right. He did.
Or who was it? It was usually
No. I think you're right on that.
and it was somebody else too. Also who does Kendrick's album.
Wait, he did
like
Kendrick?
Yeah, he did most of Kendrick's album. Usually it's Ali, but in this instance it was Manny Marroquin. Very different sounding records across the board. I mean, consistent through the album, but I think he's very interesting to study because his sound is not a tonal thing with loud drums and lots of brightness. I think his sound is very creative, like especially if we compare it to Serban Ganea's mixes.
Yeah.
Whose are like so clean and so right and so nice to the point where like Manny's sound is clean but with lots of character. That's how I describe it. Where Serban is like so clean that it almost doesn't have any character.
So I would put Bob into that same Manny category where like Bob has a kind of a sound of his own. It's very clean, but it's also very overdriven in a clean way. If you ever notice like when his choruses hit, they like distort a little in a pleasant way where it's like, oh, it just kind of hits you in the face. But yet when you look at his dynamics, it's all like one sausage fest. Like he somehow knows how to get things loud without getting things louder.
So this is important. I think this matters more in the later years of your career.
Yeah.
I would say after the first 5 years, plus years of your mixing career, this matters more. Same with production and stuff, because I think it's very, very important for everybody, producers, songwriters, engineers, to not only continually do things that are out of your comfort zone, to expand your palette and your discovery for your sound. That should be something continuous that doesn't ever end, your discovery for your own sound. But at the same time, slowly it starts to naturally develop because there's a reason why some of your clients hire you instead of other engineers. Like I literally have clients that have voiced to me for this song, I want you to mix it, but they actually have somebody else mix some of the other songs.
Next song, yeah.
Yeah, and they come back to me later. And I've heard many, because it's because I mix it in a certain aggressive way, and I can describe my sound a little bit later, but in a specific way that they like. And this is like the craziest thing ever. Because of my portfolio, they've said out loud, I came to you because I listened to your portfolio and I can imagine what this song is going to sound like after you touch it.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons it's important to have a portfolio. And if you're an artist looking to hire an engineer, that's a great way of looking at portfolios, is imagining what your song is going to sound like after they touch it.
Oh, yeah.
So this is interesting. The fact is, there's typically enough pattern or consistency between mixes from the same engineer that we're able to determine whose mixes I like more,
Yeah.
and whose mixes I like less.
Mhm.
I don't think it's healthy for us to talk about whose mixes we don't like, and I'm sure many audience members are very, very interested.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't like mine.
I will say something, like the only one that I can say, because they're recent mixes I like a lot more, but I used to extremely dislike Mixed by Ali's mixes. I actually did not like him as a mixer at all. I thought he was one of the worst, especially for someone so professional. But in the last few years, he's changed my mind. Like, he's actually gotten a lot better. I don't know what happened, or if someone called him out on his bullshit or whatever. But I think his recent stuff is very good.
Yeah, honestly.
So that's the one thing. That's the one person I'm going to say was bad, because I don't think he's bad anymore.
Yeah. Honestly speaking, like, I understand the notion, because there was a lot of mixes, like, how can I put this? They were a bit harsh in the past. I don't really hear that anymore. And for me, a harsh mix is when I start kind of getting like, it might have been characteristic, but you couldn't find a way to keep that character without so much of the abrasiveness.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Everybody has patterns, and we hopefully we support each other and learn from each other. Whether that you think that their sound is good or not, there's something you can learn from it. For example, someone that tends to mix harsher, usually their mixes are louder than yours.
Yeah, to be
And
honest.
that's the thing you're gonna learn.
Sometimes you find out that
And that's sometimes
when you're
people
mixing
lose.
for people, sometimes when you're mixing for people and you think, oh, their rough mix is really harsh. And then you turn it in, they're like, I feel like mine was louder though. It's like, you might want to add that harshness back.
And depending on the priority,
Yeah.
that harshness is the reason why they picked their mix and not yours.
Yeah, I've had that happen in the past where
Me too.
I won't say what track, but it was a track featuring Jeremiah on it. And I was like, ooh, a Jeremiah feature. Because at the time, and still to this day, like, the main artist on the record still isn't as relevant as Jeremiah. So I was more doing it for the feature. But mine had way more punch. The kick was hitting harder. The bass was fuller and thick. And, like, it was honestly speaking, like, A-B difference to, like, maybe another engineer. It was great. But the rough was so rough that I couldn't take it seriously, in my opinion. But what I failed to note was, that harshness is part of its sound, though. Like, they actually had an intended sound, and I moved away from it. So part of finding your sound, too, is understanding how your sound plays a role in other people's own unique sound. Like, are you a chameleon type? Or are you a type that has a unique kind of structure to the way you like your mixes to sound, and you don't really deviate too much from that because you kind of have, I guess you could say, this marketable tone? What is it? Kind of like what we were talking about. Okay, cool. Manny American being a chameleon is great, but he's also very uniquely himself too.
Like, some of his stuff doesn't sound as good as other things,
But you could tell it was his.
but but it's like, it's character, not bad.
Exactly.
Because you know that when he mixes Charlie Puth, that shit sounds so good.
Yeah.
And if he's able to do that, that
Yeah.
means he made this sound a little bit worse on purpose.
And sometimes
Or because
it's
of the
source
A&R.
material.
Sometimes it's politics too.
Yeah. Sometimes it's source material where it's like, we recorded this record. It's like, these vocals were recorded kind of rough. Like, it's going to take a lot of work to get them to sound better. It's like, okay, but we can't get the person back in the studio. Like, they don't want to do it anymore. Like, we may not be able to accommodate any more recording for this record. So you just got to work with what you got. Sometimes it's quite literally source material issues. But
And like I said, I mentioned slightly, is sometimes it's politics where,
Yeah.
in most bigger label situations, you're not only talking to the engineer and the artist
yeah.
and potentially producer and mastering engineer, you're also talking to the A&R. Everybody's feeding through the A&R.
Yeah.
So, like, the A&R is approving the mix, and the A&R is hiring the master engineer. So it's this thing where sometimes it's politics, and you get said no, or someone prefers something else, or they give you a stupid revision request because of politics, and that sucks. That sucks the most. But that's not. I think that most engineers do not have to deal with those politics, and that's most people don't work with labels, I would say.
Yeah, honestly speaking, like the idea of finding your sound helps you more with the underground and independent market more than it does with the label market, I would honestly argue. Main reason is there's a lot more independent work to go around than there is label work. Now, when label work is found, yes, there's a ton of artists getting signed every year, but that doesn't mean they have like the biggest budget for the biggest engineers. And so there is a lot of work for independent engineers who aren't part of a production house or anything to be involved, sure. But let's be honest, I could probably throw a rock and hit 100 independent artists before I hit a label one, you know?
Yeah.
So
And then
finding
I will
a
say
way
that
to actually serve a demographic in that market is partly because of your sound.
And I don't know about you, but for me, and this is, most of my income comes with independent artists.
Yeah. Like,
And I don't know about you, but I prefer
for
that.
me, it used to be mainly label, but that's because I was working with one, maybe two artists at a time. Like, I didn't, to this day, I still don't take on too much work because the work that I take on is still very relationship based. I don't want to say I don't market myself, because I obviously market myself, but I don't over market myself to the point where I'm constantly taking on new clients or taking on new work, because I have to finish what's in front of me first.
Yeah.
And usually that's because the artists that I work with, because I've met some of them through my label work, or they're kind of used to that workflow, they're like, yo, we need to record these 5 songs, 6 songs. And so we're not done until that project is done. So I'm very project based versus single based.
Yeah.
But with that said, like, it used to be a lot more label money that I was dealing with. And in those cases, like, you're right. It's usually the A&R. Usually the artist is lucky if they get their way with the record, because at the end of the day, they're being financed. And because of that, it's not their record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, but it isn't, you know, it's
Yeah.
it's all crazy again, politics. But let's kind of review what we've talked about. First off, I think we kind of mentioned it briefly, but I want to reemphasize it, is that it's okay. Do not force your sound. Do not try to create a sound. I think it comes to you, and it's honestly based off of, and it should be based off of, personal preference.
Yeah.
And once you kind of get used to create habits, and you like the sound of certain records, and you discover sounds by listening to other sounds, and then trying things and discovering that you like that too.
Yeah.
For example, if a metalheads mix a pop song, they're gonna naturally mix that pop song to be stylistically similar to metal.
Yeah.
Because that's what they prefer.
Yeah, they might actually lend a tonality from the metal side of music and apply that to your kick, and it may still hit hard, and they may still say, oh, that's bassier than I normally do it, but it's still probably going to be a lot tighter than somebody who deals with hip-hop normally.
And one real case study of that in modern day is that most pop mixes are being mixed by R&B hip-hoppers.
Yeah.
Like mixers. So that's why most pop music has heavy drums and bass and 808s. Also, not just the mixer, but the producer as well. Usually the producer also does hip-hop and whatever. So it could be a Charlie Puth pop song, but he's so influenced by hip-hop as well that all of a sudden there's those characteristics that slowly shine in both the production and the mixing stage.
Yeah, like if you notice, like contemporary pop music, let's say like contemporary pop R&B would be kind of like Keisha's lane, where like if you notice like her producer Ron Fair, most of the songs that Ron Fair is involved with, like most of her big hits, aren't actually like heavy drums or anything. In fact, they have large sounding drums, but they don't actually consume the mix. Like, that's actually not the focal point of the mix. It's usually like the strings, the melodies, the piano, the guitars. It's always something else. But like, imagine if they were to now do like a trap song.
Yeah.
It's not going to hit the same. It's not going to be bad. Like, technically speaking, it may still sound great, but it's not going to sound the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the second thing that I want to mention, the second point is, you kind of briefly mentioned this, is you're going to have to deal with many different sounds.
Yeah.
From the sound of the artist to, if like, let's say if everybody's involved, right? The sound of the
Mhm.
the artist, the songwriter, the vocal producer, the recording engineer, the beat producer, the instrumentalist, the guitar player, the mixing engineer, the mastering engineer, the A&R. You're gonna have to learn how to deal with everybody's unique sounds and be able to figure out. So the cool thing is that people are gonna, and this is why I like working with an independent level more, is because there's a lot more freedom to be creative and a lot more room to wiggle in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more room to wiggle in. Wiggle room.
I mean, you can wiggle in the room if you want. Like, it's not the most comfortable thing to do for hours. But.
Yeah. So I think anyway, that's one of the reasons why I like independent artists. There's a lot more creative freedom and ability to express myself, where I have a lot more freedom to say, you know, F your rough mix, like Jason Joshua says, and I can rightly do so. It's up to me.
Yeah.
And I like that, and most of my clients also like that. They're coming to me for that. But that being said, like, again, the second point is being aware that everybody has a sound,
Yeah.
and everybody has preferences, and your job as a mixer is only a small part of the entire process. And you cannot have pride with your sound and demand that your sound is prioritized over every other position that was involved. You just can't do that. It's stupid, dumb, and selfish.
My favorite saying has been, you know, the artist's name is in the front, mine's in the back.
Yes.
Consider albums.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important to note and to also be aware of.
Yeah.
Lou, let's talk a little bit about what you're saying. Why did you say that you don't think you have a sound quite yet?
Because I don't really focus on my personal desire to have it sound one specific way. Rather, I do what's best for the artist's confidence in their record and what I also think is going to do best for the record. It's more of a combination of sounds than it is one person's sound. For instance, like if I'm working with Selena, Elise, like her record Around Me, she loved the mix. I still think I could have maybe not gone as hard on the limiter and all that, but she loved the way it sounded. She liked that it was aggressive, this and that. And I'm like, cool. Now, if I wanted to push harder on it and voice a little more of my tone into it, it probably would have sounded a little different, but it wouldn't be serving the artist. And I think in the process of doing that for so long, I've kind of found myself not being able to say, well, how bright do you like your hi-hats? Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know. But I know what it sounds right. And if somebody told me, I've noticed your mixes are more like this, it's probably something I haven't taken into account myself.
I mean, and I could speak on your behalf, having listened to many different mixes from various different generations of Lou.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like time periods.
Lunarations?
Lunarations, there you go. Yeah, I don't think, it's interesting. I can tell from your sounds that you are very customer service forward minded. You do a really good job. I feel like you do a really good job catering to the needs of the song and to the clients. Yeah, there's times where you have a sound, but I think your sound is more based on genre and like, cause like your R&B tracks tend to be similar. Your hip hop tracks don't sound like your R&B tracks, but they tend to be similar with other hip hop tracks, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, there's enough of a difference with everything. It's interesting. And the fact that I'm able to like kind of describe in words what I'm hearing as well is that is the sound, right?
Okay.
But it's interesting because you said you think that you don't have a sound, and I think that that's important to bring up. Do you think that is a benefit? Is that good for you, or is that you think that you want to have a song?
I think it's a good thing because I think one of the things that you said is very true in the way that I've always kind of focused my business, which is service-oriented business, where I came from service industry. I did sales and all that, so I also know what it is to like be the one making the pitch and closing and all that, and that's cool. But at the end of the day, I'm getting hired to work on somebody else's record, and it's not my own. If it was my own and it was my production and I thought, hey, this should not be like this, then cool. Yeah, I'm the one in control. But I'm not the producer of this record. I'm not the artist that's putting their name in front. You know, like I said, my name goes on the back. If I'm lucky nowadays, you get credited. You know, I don't even have equity in the long haul unless they're offering me equity in the long haul, but with that said, I want to do what's right and best for the artist. So sometimes when I'm listening to reference tracks that they send me and everything, or when they say like, oh, I feel like it could be a little darker, my voice could be a little bit backer, I'm not fighting it. It's not my record. And because of that, I don't necessarily look to make it like that's a Lou mix. I want it to be as best as possible within their vision.
Yeah, and I think on that note, I'm a little bit more aggressive, where because people usually come to me for my creative input, and so my sound is aggressive, like meaning that if it's calling for it and if they want me to, and typically they do, and if I were to go all out, the rough sounds pretty different from the finish, from final, and that's part of my sound. Typically, if I have to, I mean, you could describe it too, but if I had to describe it, usually transients, drums, and vocals are always pristine. My vocals are always the highlight for everybody's feedback. Vocals are very important. I'm a vocalist myself. And typically the drums. Yeah. Like transient.
Like I noticed you have a smoother mid, like very pop R&B.
I'm more, tonally I'm more like mid dip.
Yeah, well,
I don't like a harsh mid range.
I will say, I guess if I did have a sound from my vocals, would be like a little more mid forward. Like I noticed that I have like a little bit more going on around like 500-600
Not
hertz.
all of your songs. I've heard a couple of your songs that were like, and that's what the song needed, was like a little bit more Chris Brownie. Yeah. Where it's like less mid range and more just that top end. I've heard a few of your songs where you've done that, and so that's why I said that. I think at your default, it's a little bit more of that low mid range stuff, but I've heard mixes where it's just like, wow, this is the same person, and it was your mix.
Good. Call me, Manny Lewican. That sounds like more like Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, I thought that was more of a Star Wars.
Manny Lewican. I don't know. But yeah, like honestly speaking, like the thing I've noticed more about yours is it's that kind of like smoother California sound.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, versus like that East Coast New York, very mid forward, like kind of ear catching kind of thing, while yours is more like soothed but pretty ear catching.
We never even mentioned the sound of the natural tendencies of regions within the same country, East and West Coast.
Like there's southern mixes, there's northern mixes, there's West and East Coast.
And that's also a lot of it's based around culture and genres that are popular in that area. Like
drill
Nashville.
music is very mid forward.
And that's UK, right?
Yeah.
So countries, there's a lot, like we've talked about many times before, different countries have different sounds.
Yeah.
Japan is very wildly different, and in fact the opposite tonality of America.
Like I remember I don't know if you were there, but I do remember a conversation with Bob Horn where he was talking about doing Chinese mixes where it's like, oh yeah, don't touch their S's. They love their sibilants. It's like, really? Like out here, people just don't want it. Too. Yeah. It's like a lot out here, you usually hear people like, oh yeah, tame those S's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, never mind. I'm not going to talk about what I thought. But let's, I think that's it. I think that's important. There's regional sounds as well. I think getting familiar with different sounds, I think most people understand that there are sounds and people are able to recognize them. Mm-hmm. I think the last thing that I want to mention is the importance. This is a thought that I have. If you listen to music a lot and you're able to determine that you like this song, the sounds in this song more than the sounds of another song, then you have the skills to be a mix engineer. Yeah. It's interesting. You may not have the skills. Wait.
You have the discernment.
What did I say? You have the what?
If you have the ability to discern the difference between one mix and another,
one that you like, and if you're able to discern versus not like,
then you may be able to develop the skill set fairly easier than others.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
So, like for example, you might find out that you prefer brighter mixes.
Yeah.
But
not too bright.
But the thing is, like when you're mixing, you don't know how to make things brighter without being harsh.
Yeah.
So that's where the skills come into play.
Yeah.
But I want to say, like, again, coming back to that, like, if you're able to discern between songs that you like the sound of and songs that you don't like the sound of, you have the potential to be a mixer. Yeah. Because that's all it is. And the skill is just being able to get to those sounds.
Yeah.
I think that was a better succinct way of saying that.
I think so.
yeah, so hopefully that helps. Let's talk about our sponsors real quick. Thank you. We're sponsoring our own episodes. This episode is sponsored by the Mixing Music Podcast. Do you like our podcast? Well, we have YouTube channels, we have Twitch streams, we have
Exclusive content.
exclusive contents. That's right.
Yeah.
Where if you like the podcast and want 3 times the amount of episodes, you can go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive for $4 a month or $40 a year.
Mm-hmm.
For a price of 1 cup of coffee for a month, you get 3 times the amount of episodes. And the other 2 episodes that come out weekly are always technical based. They're not philosophical where I talk about how to win clients or business. They're always technical based, how to improve your producing, mixing, mastering. And that's our number 1 feedback that we keep getting for everybody. More technical, more technical. So here it is for you. Join the other crew. There's a bunch of other people that are joining in. It's really, really great content. Another sponsor is FilePass. If you're interested in file sharing, but for engineers, it's really, really great. You should just look into it. Go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/FilePass. Lou and I use that always, and you probably know some engineer friends that use it, and we swear by it. Yeah, so check it out. Best deals are always found on mixingmusicpodcast.com. All right. I think that's kind of it for this episode.
I believe so.
We wanted to be succinct. I think we kind of got through everything. And the one of the purposes of this podcast is we want people to feel more confident about their abilities and skills. I think that at the end of the day, the thing that keeps people from improving is a lack of confidence.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can become better through becoming more confident is by putting in the time, putting in the work. When you become more confident, you'll be able to use your ability of discernment to find out what you do like and what you don't like.
Yeah.
Which will in turn drastically change how well you mix or how much you feel about your mix. You will start to eventually like your own mixes, believe it or not.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's at the end of the day, it all comes down to confidence and your ability. So we hope that when you listen to this podcast and these episodes, we instill some form of confidence for you to continue to elevate your art form.
Oh yeah. And if the argument here is, well, I don't have any clients, I'm sure you have a friend that plays guitar or something. Honestly, friends are the best people to actually make mistakes with because they'll never even realize it was a mistake. They're just seeing it as a good time together with you. Feel free to expand and try new things. Me and DK have friends that we literally produce and record with. We don't make money off of it, but I bet you anything, we're trying out some new things. We're trying to see, it's like, well, if it doesn't work, it's not like we're getting fired. Let's be honest.
Who are they? Who else are they going to go to? Somebody else that does it for free?
Yeah, not in LA at least.
All right. Well, on that note, happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
I like how it's like 11-meter music in the back. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
I think it's rendering the audio.
I think that's what
what
it's
it
doing
is.
too. Is it automatically in like polyphony? Why is it doing that? That's so weird. I've never seen that before. Oh, that is so weird. It's just the keycap.
There we go. Oh yeah, that's the sound of my voice. So I think I'm right on the Strauss thing. In hearing the difference, I think it's because my room is a lot deader.
Deader? No, just kidding.
Yeah, it's like did you murder it?
What was I going to say is, hold on. What is this? What was that? That was ability to mixing, editing.
Auto polyphonic mode.
Yeah, where's that? That was
I
weird.
think it's on this page. Hold up.
I saw it before because I had to I totally deleted Pro Tools and I reinstalled it, and it like lost all my settings that I had.
That sucks.
Hold on.
I mean, it shouldn't do that by default, though.
Yeah, unless.
Oh, you have the surround routing menu now. Nice.
Yeah.
Processing. Here we go.
Oh, wait. Oh,
Processing plugin.
no. Default.
There we go.
Default plugin.
So no, just click that button.
Yeah, there you go. That's why. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, Melodyne's now built in.
Yeah, audio to MIDI plugin.
Yeah, you just had to. I think it's right click on the audio track, and then
Copy audio as MIDI.
no. Right click.
Interesting.
Clip effects.
I think it is copy audio to MIDI. Oh, that audio is way too long. Oh, wait, it's doing well. Anyway, let's sign off. Thanks so much for listening. We appreciate y'all. These episodes are gonna be up later.
Tomorrow.
Oh, talking about elevator music, the funniest experiences I've ever had, dude. It's there's a few times where we were riding elevators in Japan, and it was like smooth funk, what Americans would describe as sex music.
Yeah.
It was literally that. It was to the point where like my wife and I looked at each other and was like, this is not elevator music or traditional elevator music. We're like, what is going on? Are they filming something in the next shaft? Like,
You're like, am I in a TV show? If so, me and Anna failed.
Yeah, dude, I thought that was funny. Also, when we went to go see the dolphin show at the aquarium in Okinawa, they went from like Imagine Dragons type anthem, rock anthem, into yodelay, 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 and like a yodeling song. And then the show started, and it's like da da dun dun dun. It was like the Jack Sparrow theme song,
Yeah.
the Pirates of the Caribbean theme song, and then it straight up went into "You Raise Me Up," like a hymnal, a hymnal in the middle of like these dolphins are flipping. It's like da da dun dun da da dun dun da da dun. And you're like, hell yeah! And then like, "You raise me up, so I can," and you're like, what the?
all like transitioned into each other.
Yeah, it was really weird. Like to the point where like I could not fully enjoy. It like took me out of the space of this dolphin show. I was like, these dolphins are doing just as much increasingly intense tricks, and the song just like died out. The energy. It's just so funny. They're weird. Dude, they need DJs out there. I didn't.
Maybe that's why they like American like hip hop a lot. Just like it's like, oh, it's hype.
That was so funny. Anyway,
I will say this: is KDA considered Japanese or Korean or anything at all?
what is KDA?
So apparently it's that game.
I've never heard of
What is it called? They made a movie about it, Arcane, or a TV show, Arcane. I don't know what it's called.
I've
Like
never
K/DA.
I've never
Yeah,
heard of
that song right there. Lately I've been using it as a
League of
reference.
Legends?
Yeah, I've been using it as a reference point for mixes now.
No,
like-
this might be American, dude.
That's what I was thinking. I was like,
I've
I don't
never heard of
know.
them.
I don't know who this is, but apparently the way it goes is they have the same vocalists that are hired for each specific character, and then from there, those artists will write the songs with these like super producers and everything.
Oh, in the KDA universe, she is a Chinese American living in Los Angeles and sings in both English and Chinese. After singing on social media, gained attention of the KDA members. She had a collaboration with KDA's too. Yeah, apparently they're Chinese American. I don't know. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, like I just found out the other day. My sister played me one of their songs, and I was like, "This song is too good. Like, who the hell is this?" And then I saw those animations. I was like, "Okay, I only really know Japan for doing like animated, like actual characters through what was the one where they're using the Vocaloid? Miku?
Hatsune Miku, yeah.
Yeah. That's the only other, like, I guess, known name animation artist that I can think of.
Dude, DJ Carbide says clubs are weird there. That's interesting because I've never even been to a club in America. Did you know that? I'm almost 30 and have never been to a club in my life.
I'm more concerned with his third comment.
First time I've seen anyone sit on the dance floor and watch pro dance was in the bowl. Yeah.
Pro dance, like the video game, or
No. Like he probably means like watching professionals dance. Like everybody clears the floor for a professional dancer.
That's hilarious. The fact that like, yo, that is actually pretty unique. Is that?
I assume that's what you mean, by the way.
Well, maybe, but still, somebody sitting on the dance floor just to watch, like, that is unique. At least compared to LA. Like if you sat on the dance floor in LA, security guards would be like, "You okay? You had enough to drink today? You got water? Like you good?"
No, it's
like
probably because they, like Japanese people are, remember they're
very respectful.
yeah, so like so people in the back can watch.
Yeah, professional dancers.
Yeah, so yeah, I think we're right there. All right, yeah, so on that note, let me say yeah, let's sign off. I'm already playing the sign off song.
He has no style. He has no grace. This car has a funny face. He can handstand. When he
On that note, happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
just like a balloon. This crazy car just digs his tune.